connecting first. Everybody has to say, got it, if they want to be recorded, but if not, we'll see you later. While that's doing it, let's see here. Fantastic, it's working. So, hide that. All right, so I'm presenting from my laptop and not my my two displays I usually have. So I'll ask the co-host to help out. If you see people raising hands or see questions in the chat, please let's be interactive. We don't have that many people and we have plenty of time. Feel free to ask questions along the way, or if there's other things that aren't clear, or if you want to explore other things, feel free to. But you co-hosts, if you can let me know if you see raised hands, and feel free to just interrupt and go in, because it's, think of it like family around the dinner table instead of, or kind of like we're Hollywood Squares, I guess would be it too. So, or I could do this one. Here we go. But today I'm using my living room background because I'm going to be doing some automation things here with that. So, first and foremost, any questions right out of the box? Ooh, I almost quit Zoom. I don't want to do
Yeah,
that.
I have one.
Yeah, Bev, go right ahead.
Asking for a friend and myself. Yeah, well, no, this is the one that I asked the other day for. Backups. She was told that when she relocated by Apple, that Timeline was going out and she didn't need that, and iCloud was sufficient. And she said,
Wait, what was going out? I'm sorry.
I said Timeline, Time Machine. So I wasn't able to effectively describe why one would keep Time Machine if one had everything on the cloud, the iCloud.
Great question. And um, so okay, let's back this up. I can give you an example. I have a client who was on Mojave. She's a wonderful photographer. She actually keeps her photography on a external RAID array, which backs that up. But I I had warned her to wait a while because she'd been on Mojave. She's on an iMac Pro, and I was getting ready to have her go to Mojave, but I wanted to. She had limited space on her drive, and so I was, I dreaded it when she called me up and said I upgraded to Mojave and it does. I'm sorry, Monterey, and it doesn't work. And it's really the first of any of, actually there's been one other Monterey update that hasn't worked for people. And so if she had simply relied on the cloud quote backup, which I'll talk about in a minute, it would it'd be very tough. It'd take hours and hours and hours and hours to recreate everything. And I'm in the process. I even took her computer home and I'm working on it. And we should be able to recover it because she had two time machine backup. And that's very, very critical. Let me explain the differences. So, time machine is called time machine for this reason. So I'll give you an example. You're out in your garden and you're taking pictures of the roses. And all of a sudden the neighbor's cat zings by and you take a picture of the neighbor's cat. And, you know, it's just the cat. So you're going along for a while and it was kind of a blurry picture of the cat. And you don't like the cat anyway, but you know, after a while you say, oh, I don't need that. I'm not going to do anything with it. So you delete that cat photo, but all your rose photos are still there. And then 6 months later, your neighbor comes over and says, hey, you showed me that picture of my cat. Do you still have it? because my cat is missing and I want to make a lost cat poster. Well, this puts you in a bit of a moral dilemma because you didn't like the cat. So, do you let the neighbor know that you can reach back into Time Machine and recover something you've deleted, or do you not? So basically, what you can do, Time Machine has from the first day you started Time Machine, even if you've deleted something, you can go back and get it up to the point where your Time Machine drive gets so full that it needs to start writing over the oldest stuff you deleted. It will never write over the pictures of the roses that you've saved on your computer, but that cat could disappear in 3 years or whatever. Or you just don't hassle with that and you get a whole nother hard drive when you come in. And it's Time Machine Time Machine is a program, and Time Machine utilizes either the old time capsule that Apple used to sell that was an airport router with a hard drive in it, or it uses an external hard drive and only an external hard drive. And external hard drives are fairly inexpensive. I always recommend the 5 terabytes from Costco that go from $89 to $119 depending on when they're available. Yes, you can find deals other places, but it's a little portable. Plugs into your USB. It's powered by the USB. You don't have to plug it into the wall. And what that does is, let's just say, in fact, this client was kind of a good example. We tried to restore it from Time Machine, but there's some other issues because her hard drive was so full. So that's why I've had to take the machine and I'm gonna do some magic and rub my tummy and pat my head to make it work. So if you get a new computer, or your computer dies, or anything else, I can walk you through on the phone. Apple makes it so easy. So let's just use the example of a brand new computer. Your computer gets stolen, but they don't take your Time Machine hard drive, and you have it. You simply fire up the new computer. A screen pops up. You've got 2 questions. One, do you want it in English? And 2, do you want it to be use the United States? And at that point, then it goes along and it pops up and says, how do you want to get data into your new computer? And you have a choice, and the first one that's checked automatically is from another Mac or a Time Machine backup. So you plug your hard drive into the new computer with the new USB-C ports that it has. You might need a little adapter. That's a whole different thing. But it'll say, oh, okay. And then you simply say, yes, use that. And then it says, okay, here's these 5 types of data we're going to bring in. You want to bring them in? You say yes. You walk away from the thing, and your computer, your new computer, or your replacement computer, or your replacement hard drive takes off right where it left off the last time you backed up to Time Machine. Now, iCloud is a backup for your iOS devices only, but because more and more of us are putting our data from our computer on the cloud too, like our documents and our desktop folder and our photos can live on the cloud. But that is not a true backup unless it's your iOS device or your iPhone or your iPad. And let me explain the cloud. It's syncing, it's not backing up. So what that means is photos, for instance, which are the most precious things, the things you want to protect the most, they're on the cloud and they're on your computer. And and they're on your phone, and if you have iCloud Photos on. And the nice thing is, it gives you a secondary spot where they are. But in this case of the cat, let's say you didn't have a Time Machine backup and you had the cat in Photos and you deleted the photo of the cat. Well, it survives inside Photos in the cloud for 30 days. It counts down and then it will disappear after 30 days. And when it's gone, it's gone. Obviously, it's still on your time machine backup, but in this case, we're talking about just the cloud. So it disappears after 30 days, so you couldn't recover it. And that 30-day thing allows you, it's in a folder called recently deleted. You could go back and restore it if you wanted to. But it so it is syncing, and the way I want, and also your documents and desktop are on there. And I want to describe this in a way that doesn't concern pictures, because when we think about our photos, we get emotional, as we should. So it's the same thing as, let's talk about contacts. You have contacts on your phone, you have contacts on your computer, and your contacts sync up on your cloud. So if you go into contacts, let's say on your phone, and you change someone's phone number, it doesn't go directly to your computer in that case, or your iPad. It goes up to the cloud, it changes it up there, and then it trickles down to the other devices. So you've changed that phone number. And in that case, there's no way to go back and see what the old phone number is if you messed up. You could do it if you backed it up, but I'm just trying to illustrate how it is if you delete things, because it's not a backup. So then let's say you go along and you delete a contact. Unmute yourself and tell me what you think happens when you delete a contact.
Goes away eventually, 30 days.
No,
No.
right away.
Oh, right away. Okay.
Yeah.
Only photos gets 30 days grace.
Yes. So, and the reason I'm doing this in contacts, because it's a little easier to realize, because it's syncing your devices. So you delete it from your computer, it deletes it from the cloud, and then it deletes it down from your phone. So that's syncing. But the normal backup strategy is what's called 3-2-1. You should have 3 copies of every file that's important to you. And let's talk about where those would exist in a typical scenario. 1 copy would be on your hard drive. I'm sorry, it's all to say, your internal drive on your computer. So 1 copy of whatever file it is. It could be legal documents, it could be photos. That exists on your internal hard drive. A second copy will exist on the external drive using Time Machine. And the third copy of that would be on the cloud, especially if you have documents and desktop on the cloud. But most of us have enabled iCloud for the photos. So those are 3 places. So that's the 3 component. The 2 component of the backup strategy is it should be on 2 different types of media. That kind of refers back to the days when you might have a DVD to back things up or something like that. And when we say 2 types of media, yeah, you got a solid state drive on the computer, you've got a spinning hard drive you hook up on the thing for Time Machine, and iCloud is a different type of media. So really, you've kind of got it on 3 types of media. And when I say media, that means storage. And the 3-2-1, 1 copy or file should be off-site. There are 2 ways to accomplish that. One is, even though it's not really a backup on the cloud, I let you count that as your off-site backup. Now, let me give you an example. I know of 2 people that were in the campfire years ago from the Paradise Fire. They had 8 minutes to leave their house. So you're probably worried about the cats, the dogs, your spouse, anything else. When you have 8 minutes to get out, your computer may be the last thing. So that's where, yes, you could rebuild your computer even if you don't have your Time Machine backup. It takes more work, but you could still recover your photos and things from the cloud. Because those, and if you think about it, if you have 8 minutes rather than, yes, you'd grab your computer if you could, but you might want to grab your old photo scrapbooks because those are not going to be replaced. So, anyway, my recommendation is that you can do one other step. If you really want to make sure you're protected, you have two time machine backups and use the cloud. And how two time machine backups work. And again, don't be muddled down and say, oh, two's too much. Just do one. Absolutely do one, because this is the only way I can recover this computer I'm working on here. And I'm the one that gets that call. And the first thing I ask the people is, do you have a time machine backup? And if they do, you don't even really need me to come over because it just works right through it. So it's important. But what I recommend is a second time machine backup that you keep either in a fireproof safe at least, or in a different spot in your house than the one time machine backup. Because here's what we're at risk of: fire, flood, and theft. Okay. So if your computer and your backup hard drive are in the same location, you're only going to get what's on the cloud. And yeah, you can do it. It takes a little longer. If you have a second hard drive with a time machine backup that you've sequestered in the house in a safe or somewhere else, or in a safety deposit box, or what I like to say is put it in an office or your safe deposit box or a friend's house more than 10 blocks from your house. And the reason I use 10 blocks as a buffer is I figure if something affects more than 10 blocks, it's probably the apocalypse, so your data isn't going to matter. So,
Unless you're in Jackson.
yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
But it just, having it offsite helps, and it's a second backup. And here's how hard it is. The hardest part of getting a time machine backup is taking it out of the packaging that you got. You simply plug it into your computer and it pops up and says, oh, I see you've plugged in an external drive. Do you want to use Time Machine with that? And you say, well, yeah, that's why I bought it. So you click yes, and it says, well, that brand new hard drive you just plugged in that you want to use for Time Machine, and it's empty, I'm going to erase it. And you say, okay, boom, it goes off. And if you're juggling the two external hard drives, here's how I recommend that. And I encourage it. So you have the two Time Machine backups. And let's say you keep one at the safe deposit box at the bank. And I recommend you keep the USB cable at your house and just take that up there, unless you're going to lose it at your house. But what you do is you rotate those. So the one you have plugged into your computer will back up every hour that it's plugged in and any new data that you have, and work just great. After I say you have to make your secondary drive somewhere that's pretty easy for you to use. So you go up and you say, okay, I just took a long trip and I have 800 new photos from the trip. I upload those to my computer. Wow, this would be a really good time to make sure my secondary backup has those on it. So what you do is you do your current backup on the one you have. Then you take the one backup, unplug it from your computer, go put it in the safe deposit box, and bring home that other one. And now that'll be the one that's constantly on your computer and backing up. The only downside is, and if you don't have any new data that you're concerned about, if you haven't taken a new trip, it could be 6 months. Because that one is stuck in time. The one in the safe deposit box will still work if you have a problem with your computer. It's just whatever on it won't show the last 6 months since you backed up. So if it's nothing critical, no big deal. Don't kill yourself, because I find that the more onerous you make this task, the less likely you are to do it. So therefore, make it easy, get a routine, and trust me, anybody that's ever lost data knows the importance of it. So, and it will pop up on your screen and say, you haven't backed up for 22 days, when the whole time your current one's hooked to your computer. it's saying, oh, your second one hasn't been backed up. It doesn't say that. But you go up to the Time Machine logo and you click on it, it says, oh, it was backed up at 7:20 this morning. So you're all good. Now, I have hands up, but I only want to have questions about Time Machine.
Let's finish Bev first. So,
Oh, go ahead, Bob.
the first words out of Bev's mouth were that her friend said, "Time machine's going away." Now, I haven't heard any rumors like that. So,
This was like 5 years ago. She said when she
oh,
went
okay.
from Michigan to relocated to Florida. So she was simplifying her household. And she got rid of the hard drive she was backing up Time Machine to.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah,
Donna had heard it for a long time.
What about programs like all the different like Paprika and all the different programs? How do those get backed up? Are they backed up on Time Machine?
your applications,
Okay, yes.
yes, they're backed up on it.
On
Now,
Time Machine.
applications are not a big, so just to let you know, these days a time machine is not as critical as it was before because the cloud can have all your documents and desktop and your photos. But the problem is you go through setting up all these preferences and all this other crap for $100. Get that hard drive. And Pete's the other way. He says just keep it on the cloud. Well, it just in reality it's not the way to do it. But all your applications are there. But remember, unlike the photos of your nephew that was 5 years old, you can't take that photo again, but you can always download the application again. So it is backed up on the computer and I'm sorry, on Time Machine, but that, and it's great. It comes over, but all your settings and like with Microsoft and with Adobe, they're so tough about their licensing. It just does it. It just works. So
I have on the cloud.
Yeah, and it's the dual strategy is the way to go. Trust me, it's so. I mean, think about how many unrepeatable, priceless pictures you have. And remember, if you're using iCloud Library for your photos, as I explained with my contacts demonstration, if you delete it on your phone, it deletes it on the cloud and everywhere. So only delete a photo if you never, ever, ever want to see it again. And I'll give you an example. There are some new software out there. There's Gigapixel AI from Topaz that if you have a photo that just was slightly out, didn't look very good, it can use artificial intelligence and clean that up. Out of focus photos may sometime in the future be able to get back in focus. So
you did not mention something like Carbonite or Backblaze.
This is all you need. Those are additional. Of those, I recommend Backblaze, and there's some other stuff, Super Duper, and Carbon Copy Cloner. But if you have this strategy and you're doing both drives, you don't need the others. Some people use Carbonite or Backblaze and don't use Time Machine. And when you go to recover a computer, it's many steps. So let's put it this way. I charge $100 an hour. That's the price of a hard drive. If you have a Time Machine backup, most of the time I just walk you through it in the phone and I don't charge you anything. And the rest of the time, if you have to use Carbonite or Backblaze and we have to recreate your computer, you're looking at no less than 3 hours. So it's the old, what was it, Midas or something? You can pay me now or you can pay me later. So, and when I bring money into it, then people, smarten up. Like when I was saying, don't upgrade past Mojave because you'll make me a very rich man because of all the problems. So that got people all of a sudden, they kind of said, okay, I don't need to.
And
before I get,
can I just add for Bev?
Hang on, Mary. I've got 3 people in front of you. And if you can raise your hand digitally, please. Harmon asked, over 15 minutes ago. Is it better, easier to move data to the new Mac from the old Mac or from the Time Machine hard drive? And that's a great point. So there's another thing in what's called Migration Assistant built into the Mac. It allows you to not use Time Machine. You can use computer to computer, but Harmon, I have seen that fail about 60% of the time. It doesn't screw anything up. It just doesn't work because it's depending on your home network and things. And it's much faster, much more solid to use the Time Machine backup than that. And there's no difference in how it affects your computer. Good question, though. Another thing I want to point out. We're talking about files and safety. Then I'll get to the couple other questions. So a lot of people say, well, my hard drive on my computer is getting too full. I want to put my photos on an external hard drive. So let's think about that for a second. Let's say I do that. So now those photos no longer exist on my internal drive on my computer. Okay, so now I move it to a hard drive. And that hard drive might be the same hard drive that has my Time Machine backup on it. So you have a new puppy in the house. It somehow goes and steals your hard drive and dumps it in, I mean, being absurd, it dumps it in the toilet. Your photos were only in one place. You can, though I don't recommend it, put your photos on an external drive, but the 3-2-1 rule still applies. You need to have 2 more copies of it somewhere else. And remember, on that hard drive, we said Time Machine and photos. That counts. Well, that's got your photos in the Time Machine and the ones you moved there. That doesn't count as double because you're still vulnerable with one drive. So the other beauty of using iCloud Library with your photos is on all Apple devices, the cloud stores the full-size version of all your photos, but on your device, you have the option of optimizing. And what that means is if your iPhone, your iPad, or your Mac needs more hard drive space, it will lessen the quality of the picture you see down to thumbnail. Only if it's needed, it dynamically adjusts. But the full version is still up on the cloud. So the beauty of that is if I click on that photo, it just takes a half sec and then it downloads the full version of the photo. And you do all your adjustments on it. You can crop it, do whatever you want, and it gets saved back to the cloud. But it was really genius how Apple did that because when they were transitioning from internal hard drives, spinning hard drives, to solid state drives, they were smaller. And so, and it also helps on the phone. That's another reason it really saves memory on a phone. I have seen 50 gigabyte photo libraries take up 3 gigabytes on the phone and on the Mac. But every picture is there. It's a representation of the picture. And when you click on it, it makes it larger. So, June, question on Time Machine?
Yes, you said something that kind of confused me. My husband and I are probably the most boring tech people in the world. And what we've been doing is plugging in our external drive once a month to back up Time Machine. But you said something about continuous backup. So are we doing adequate?
So you're using Time Machine?
Yes.
And how often is it plugged in?
Once a month.
And are you on a laptop or a desktop?
Lap.
Okay. And so if you went and took a trip and you had a bunch of new photos, would you plug it in more often than once a month?
No.
Why not?
We don't do that very much.
Okay, but do you have grandkids?
Yes.
You take a picture of the grandkid that's really cute. Isn't that a precious picture you don't want to lose?
Yes.
Okay. So then it's so easy to back up. Why wouldn't you back up more often?
I don't know. You mean most of the people here today plug in their external drive?
Why do you care about everybody else? We're talking about you and your photos.
I'm just trying to figure out what most people do. If
Well,
I'm
it doesn't matter. What should you do is what matters. Not what
Okay.
everybody else does. Not everybody likes sushi. So it's where with a laptop, I recommend having your external drive where you kind of plug it in most of the time and plug it in whenever you get a chance. There's no
Oh,
reason to not to.
okay.
And if it were a desktop,
And I should point out, it doesn't take up any more room on your hard drive, because what happens with the backup is the very first backup on Time Machine, and yours is a great question, but I took it farther because we got to wrap around why we need to do that. So it's the Time Machine, the first backup takes a long time, and after that, it only is whatever changed between either last 2 weeks, last 2 months, last 2 hours. It does that. It takes no energy from the computer. I do recommend, because it uses the power from the laptop, just do it. Just make sure it's plugged into power so you're not draining the battery extensively.
Okay.
So, does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Yes, thank
And
you.
the more often the better, but a month is okay. Just realize some data may be at risk.
Okay.
Bob, you
what
had a
would you
point?
do if it was a desktop?
If it's a desktop machine, I say leave it plugged in all the time. There's no reason not to.
And Donna had lowered her hand, but Donna did have her hand up. Question from Donna may have already been answered. So,
Okay, Mary, you had a question, and then Donna, you'll be next.
I was just going to make a comment to Bev that one of the beauties of using Time Machine is if you have deleted a document or totally messed it up, you can easily, and I think many of us have done them, go back and retrieve it in about less than 5 minutes. And I think just for that, it is worth it to have the Time Machine backing up frequently, because I think we've all inadvertently deleted something on a document or whatever.
Or
That's
on
just an addition. It's just easy to use. It's very easy.
Or how many times are you working on a document, say it has some graphics and stuff, and you go and you say, man, I liked this better 10 minutes ago. So you could go back, or an hour ago. So that's a great point. Be careful how you recover data if you need it on Time Machine. And that's where I would recommend there's a thing that says enter Time Machine. Because here's the deal with Time Machine is, let's use our example with contacts. So contacts has a data file, and you all of a sudden have gone through and you deleted 20 people that you didn't mean to. If you go back into Time Machine, well, let's say you don't realize this for a month and you've entered 60 more people in your contacts. You say, wow, I deleted those other people. If you go back in time and say, restore my contacts from what I had a month ago, it will replace what you have with what you had back then. So those 20 people you deleted are back, but the 6 new people, we'll say, you put in aren't there. So you've got to be careful on that, and there's ways to do each one. And I would recommend you get a tech support person to help with that if you have to recover it. But just finding a file is quite easy. And there's ways, and there's some good tutorials. So good, Mary, very good point. And I'm glad you added that. So Donna, go right ahead, unmute yourself.
My question is about photos, because we were using that in the past couple of meetings. And are you ready for a change?
Yes.
Okay. Can I edit a photo in Photos to remove like a thumbprint in the photo? Is there anything in the Photos editing tools, or
Is
do
it
I
on
need
your
it
computer or on an iPhone?
on my computer?
Just get a cloth and just wipe the screen.
Oh.
Or put whiteout on it. Yes, there is. There are some tools within the photos, and it's called Retouch. And I
Okay,
believe it has a little kind of like a logo of a Band-Aid. And I
okay.
went over that. If you go back into the videos, and I should point out again, the videos are up on YouTube. I did a photos presentation and I went into it. I like one that's called Snap but when I did that last presentation, I used Snap more than I use Apple's version. And I went back and Apple has improved it dramatically in photos. And it just does a little thing where it kind of, you draw the area and say, okay, get rid of that thing. It's great for when you have old pictures that have creases in them, or it can take blemishes off of people, things like that. I use it notoriously for the old High Sierra desktop picture. I took a picture right there, actually about this time. It was in October a couple of years ago, and there were two fishermen on the edge of the lake, and I wanted it to be without them, and I took them off. And so that's yeah, Retouch is what it's called, and it does a great job. And you can play with it because with photos, here's kind of the nice thing about backup there is when you do anything on photos, you can always revert back to your original photo. And that
All
works out
right.
very well.
And
So
then another,
you can mess with it as much as you want, and you still can go back to the
you can get
original.
back. And I find photos in the menu up above. I find the retouch. I find retouch.
Actually, let me share my screen and I'll show you because it's pretty cool. Let me fire it up. Okay, I'm going to share my screen in a second. Okay, I will just share my screen. Okay. So, let me get this out of the way. All right, so I've replaced this coffee table. So part of the reason I brought this up, one of my pictures is, if anyone needs a nice coffee table, let me know. It's yours for free. It's a pretty good sized coffee table. I replaced it with one that's from fossils in the Sahara that are 500 million years old. But that being said, let me go here. So I'll zoom this in a little. And you see this area, this is a reflection. So if I go up here and I click edit on the photo, and then I scroll down, and you'll see, gotta do, oh, retouch right here. It looks like a Band-Aid. Everybody see that?
Yep.
So if I click the little brush, it becomes a circle. And that circle's a little too big for what we want to do. So I'm going to reduce the size of the circle. You can barely see that it's doing that. And now let's try this. I'm going to put it over here, and I'm going to click and drag. Give it a second. Come on.
There's a click done. Oh, no, never mind.
Okay, so see there it went away. Now you could do smaller areas and things like that. Let's try this. It's really interesting. I have this sconce light there. Let's see what it does there. I'm just curious. See, it kind of tries to recreate the pattern. So in that case, I would say no, undo, and I can just hit the little button. Now I'll just Command Z, undo it. So anyway, that would work with your thing, and it's called Retouch. It's on the right over here.
And
Ken.
I blinked. How do you get that right panel to come up?
Oh, you go into Edit,
Yeah.
So if I'll hit done, you click the edit screen, and then you may not have all of these. There's some,
Nothing come up on mine. Yeah.
you,
It's hidden.
well, there should be something there, and you may have to hit the plus sign
Okay.
or
Not
do
the
some,
ellipsis or something.
yeah. And I'm sure by now Al has posted a link on Retouch. So, and I'll tell you, that did a pretty darn good job. I could have messed with that a little more, but see how it extended the table frame and everything else. And if you're interested, you can get a hold of me. Again, it's a nice table. So I just had to. It's still sitting in my living room till somebody takes it away. All right.
So Ken, kind of
I
on
haven't-
this, oops, I was gonna say on the same theme, when you, with Time Machine, so you retouch, like I cropped a photo about, say more than 30 days ago. Instead of using retouch, I just cropped out my thumb. Now, if I went back, but now my photos are syncing up to the cloud.
Doesn't matter. Remember, you can always click on and say revert to
Okay.
original. Let's do that. So I'll go back to this photo. And once I hit edit, I have a little right here says revert to original. Look at that.
And even because it's living on my hard drive.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't live on your hard drive. It lives in the cloud.
We
It's
don't
just-
have, okay.
and,
it's heaven
and again,
forbid.
it's just like changing someone's address in contacts. Okay, you have to think of it that way.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah, Al.
Yeah. When you're adjusting the size of the circle there, and there's a
Yeah.
number just to the right of it, and is that the actual pixel width?
Good question. And it looks like it might be inches, to be honest.
Mm.
But I don't know. I just treat it as relative, and I don't even look at that. What I do is I look at where I'm going to be doing it, and I say, wow, that's about the right size.
Right. Calibrated eyeball.
And then I click on that, and as I move so what happens is when I'm over my menu bar, you don't see the circle. When I'm over here, you see the circle. Sorry, there it is. It's easier to see on the carpet. But when I'm here, only when I do the slider does it show me the size. Okay? And that's again retouch. It's a little band-aid. And it may be closed like that. And I don't know. So that I don't know if that's automatic. Let's see.
You know, something to point out that if you don't see some of the menu options, just keep in mind. So hitting those arrows up and down will give you a whole bunch of options.
Yeah, and while we're here, it's a huge point. So normally yours would look like this, and if you hit the magic wand, it corrects the photo, and it does a good job.
Yeah.
But let's say these are all closed. So yours probably look like this, and actually, I have all of them done. So you might have something at the bottom that says add. And what add is, it gives you the choice to bring all these other things in. So if we go to light, for instance, auto is checked, and that did the check here. But if I flip this open, now I can adjust it myself with a simple slider, and you can see the difference. Or when I go to options, and let's look at this example. So I have these things underneath here that are kind of shadowed. So let's try bring stuff out of the shadows. And you can see they're now brighter, and it's not blowing out the photo. So rather than just use the slider, I can do specific things. You can see this is I mean, it's blown out now, but you can see that this stuff is a little bit better. Al, Al or Bob, you're a big photographer. Anybody else have anything to add to this? Please go ahead. And then we're going to go into Siri, and we have plenty of time. So
Yeah. The standard Apple's photo app is pretty robust if you take the time to go through the possible menu options and just play, like Ken was saying, you can't screw anything up. You can always revert to the original, and pretty robust.
And to that point, what I do is, because let's just say color, for instance. So I play with saturation a lot. Well, actually, let's return this. I'm going to hit undo on the deep shadow. Okay. So it's pretty much neutral now. And by the way, when you take a picture with the iPhone, it needs very little correction. You might just do some enhancement because it's so good coming out of the iPhone. But what I will do in cases like this, for instance, shadows, I'll start sliding it over all the way, and then I'll go all the way the other way, and then because I can see what it does, and then I figure out where I want it. And remember, I can always hit undo and it does that thing. The same thing with this overall slider. If you don't want to mess with highlights and all this, let it determine, because the computer's really good at it, and we could lighten this up a little if you want to have more of the stuff there. The problem is I'm kind of this is a black back, it's black in there and it didn't have much light. And so this stuff won't pop out. But the other one here is you can do the color shifting. Like I can enhance the color, and that's obviously too much, and oh, that's too little. So you can kind of play with those, and you see how it adjusts the different things down below. So anyway, mess with it. It's non-destructive. You can always say revert to original, and boom. Even if you crop something, and even if you leave photos and come back 2 days later, it still can revert to original.
What I would add to what you have said, in actual everyday dealing, the example you did with a reflected light there, I would have worked with even tinier brushes and spent more time, because the result you had a break in the upper ridge has shininess going all the way along it.
And that's a perfect point, and I'll show you what Bob is saying. So if I go here and I blow this up a bit, so now I go back here to my retouch and I bring the size down. And now if I just do this one,
then you don't have a break in that.
And the nice thing is, remember, instead of one big one and undoing the whole thing, I preserve that one, and now I can go and do here, and I'm basically painting this. That's why it's called a brush. Look how well that did that. Yeah. So this will be a challenge. So I'm going to do this one in two parts. I'm going to do the one over the rug, and then I'll do this one.
It's great for cleaning up blemishes in portraits.
Yeah, like I have this little white thing right down here in the lower left. Boom, I just tap it, it's done. I'll tap this and it's done. Tap that. The book has a little bit of a, let's see what happens there. I don't know if it'll do it. It probably won't. Yeah, so you Command Z. Like this little one here, right there. See, that cleaned that up. All right. Good points. I have two hands raised. June, or only one now. Somebody must have put their hand down. June, go ahead.
I missed where the undo button is.
So the undo button is right here when I'm, well, let's see here. Hang on. So let me go down to retouch. So I'm on retouch, and do you see where my cursor is?
Oh.
Right here.
The back arrow.
Undo, or these are buttons you really want to get to know, are undo and redo. Command Z is your friend.
Okay.
In fact, I'll be speaking of undo when we do Siri here in a second. Okay. So any other question? And then, that was a great question on photos. Okay, so June, and if one of the co-hosts can put her hand down, please. Donna, you had another question. Go ahead.
I do. About, are the tools on the iPhone?
I'm sorry, Bob?
No can do. We're still looking at your shared screen.
Oh, I know, but she may have a question.
Never mind. Sorry.
Are the tools on the iPhone the same as the ones on my machine?
Pretty close. And I haven't, I'll look really quick just because, when we first asked that question, I believe, let's see here. I'll take this, edit. I think on the phone, there's not retouch,
Okay.
but there are apps that do it.
What is example?
What apps? Oh gosh.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's all right.
Help me out, you guys. I can't remember which ones. Let's see. Retouch. Retouch is one. It's all one word.
Okay.
Retouch. I knew I
And the
had
other question, these editing tools will not be helpful in taking a whole object like a book out of this picture, or putting something else like a pencil into the picture. These tools are not the ones to use for that.
No, that would be, you could do that in Pages and some other things, but yeah, taking it and having and extracting it out might work with retouch. You can play with it, but that's a little beyond, and we've got to kind of move on to Siri at this point.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If there were any other questions, go ahead quick, and otherwise I will hide photos. All right. So, and again, please interrupt, raise your hand, do whatever. We have some open mics, you guys. If you co-hosts can make sure we're not hearing anything on them, so that's fine. Just help monitor that. So we're going to talk about Siri and dictation, and it's a tool that's been in the phone since the iPhone 4S. And the 4S, the S in the meant usually the speedier version of the 4, but it started with the iPhone 4S. Google Android, they have artificial intelligence, voice recognition. So do the Amazon Alexa devices and things like that. So during my presentation, everyone, if you have your microphone on, do not say the word "hey" and the word "Siri" at the same time, because you will set off a cacophony of people's devices. So when I say the word "hey" and the word "Siri," that's how I say it. I don't say the two together. Okay?
Hey, Ken, you might think about doing what Karen does. She just says, "Hey, lady."
I'm this way is the way to do it, because it amplifies it more, and it's in my habit already. And Leo Laporte goes, "Hey, Shlomo." So anyway, I just think this drives the home more, but thank you for the suggestion. So I'm going to go through Siri on training wheels. Actually, speaking of having devices get activated, before we would say the word "hey" and the word "Siri," it used to launch when you said Siri. And I can remember years ago, gosh, probably a decade now, in the evening, watching the news on TV and slightly falling asleep. And all of a sudden, my phone goes, "What? Can I help you?" And I'm like, I didn't say anything. And it was when they were reporting about the country of Syria on the news, and it would pick it up and it would trigger my device. And so it took me a long time to figure it out, because it woke me up out of this nice sleep. And then I was like, oh God. And then finally I realized it was when the newscaster would say Syria, it would trigger Siri. So anyway, now you teach Siri, and we're going to go through that when I go to my phone. We're going to show you how to make sure that it's active that way and teach it to your voice. But dictation is Siri on training wheels, and I'm going to give you some examples of that. And I like to say now, since we do video calls and all that other stuff, your friends are going to think you're crazy because you're talking to yourself, but don't worry about it, and go from there. So Before we get into Siri, we have to let you know about a very special event happening in a couple days. It'll be at 10 a.m. You can go to apple.com on virtually any Apple device, and it will be announcing the new iPhone 14. And iPhone 14, I have some pictures I'll show you of possible renders. It will also announce iOS 16, which, and the way it'll work is, let's say you're looking for a new phone, which I'm going to discuss also in this before we get to Siri, is the generally speaking, that's on Wednesday, then you'll be able to order the phone at midnight or 3 a.m. on Friday, and it would be delivered or in the store a week or 10 days after that is generally how they do it. And they sell out like crazy. So if you're in the market for a new phone, you should make sure you're ready. Those of us on the upgrade process, you'll get the thing where you can kind of set that in stage ahead of time. So when they have the keynote, they will also announce iOS 16, and iOS 16 should be available shortly thereafter. Sometimes it's that day, sometimes it's the next week or whatever. But I tell people always, while iOS is always very solid, you should be very careful about upgrading to the new OS if you have a mission critical device. In other words, if something happens and that device gets bricked, you can't be without it. I know people that think about updating their device right when they're getting ready to go on a trip. That's not wise. So anyway, what I do is I wait until I get my new phone, which will have iOS 16 on it, and then I go. I don't worry about it because my phone is critical to me. Now my iPad, on the other hand, I usually do it right away because if something happens to it, it isn't a deal breaker for me. So anyway, the other thing from Apple that may or may not be talked about during this event, and probably not because this is an iPhone event, Ventura is the new operating system that will be out, I would say, within a month. I haven't heard any firm dates on that. Al may be up to speed on that, but Ventura is the new operating system for your Mac. And on that, be even more cautious because it could cause issues. So wait until it gets tried out. But it's been being beta tested, and results seem to be pretty good. And they're not doing a ton of new things. There are some great features. In fact, we'll go over iOS 16 and Ventura once they come out, and we'll have a class on that. So moving right along. These are renders of the new iPhone. So indications are there will be a purple or lavender phone, and that could be a good draw. Generally speaking, when they announce a new color, that's one of the ones that it's going to be in shorter supply, not so much from supply, but more because of demand. So the indications and the rumors point to right now, and let's talk about this because part of this before we get into Siri is to get you prepared if you want to get a new phone. So currently we have the 13 mini, the 13 Pro, and the 13 Pro Max. So the Max is the largest one, and it only comes in the 13 Pro. The mini only comes in the 13. And let me explain the difference on the 13s. Not sure on the 14s. I think it's going to hold true. So the 13, the Pro is more money than the regular 13, and that's because it has a better OLED screen and it has a third camera lens on it. And it's everything else, it's the same chip and it works the same. And the way I like to talk to people about that is if you're taking snapshots, in other words, the price tags at Costco, the car you see here, just things like that. If the quality, if you're taking snapshots and you're not trying to take fine photographs, you're fine with the 13. It does a wonderful job. But if you're using your phone for photography, you should go to the Pro. And that's kind of how you differentiate it. So, and their indication are is there won't be a mini in the 14. So you'll have the 14 and the 14 Pro, and then you'll have a 14 Pro Max. There might be a regular 14 Pro. I don't know. We don't know. Find out on the 7th. So questions on, oh, and so the 13s that are currently there, the mini may go away or they may still offer it. But what'll generally happen is it will drop by about $100. These phones will be up to it. We're going to talk about carriers in a second. So I'm wanting to answer anybody who has questions on phones themselves. Okay, we'll move to the next. So that part of this announcement also will be indications are the Series 8 Apple Watch, and it sounds like it's just pretty much an incremental update to it. There is rumor of a Series 8 Pro that might go for $1,000, and I'm sure it would have it would probably do the dishes for you and take the trash out, but we don't know, and we'll see. But that's a vague rumor. So if you're going to get a new phone, that's the time to consult and look at if you want to change carriers. And the reason that is important is because when you change carriers, they will pay you a bounty to come over to them because they know you're probably going to be with them for a long time. So they give you great incentives to come over to them. Now, the question comes up, if I buy it from Apple, do I get the same incentives as if I buy direct from the carrier? And the answer is usually yes, pretty much so, because that's how they work it. The advantage to buying the phone from Apple is, in the past, and it should stay this way going forward, the phone is unlocked, which means you can change carriers anytime you want. But here's how they do it. In the old days, we used to have 2-year contracts. And the reason is because they were either giving you a phone for free or heavily discounting the phone. So therefore, for that, they would then require you to be with them for 2 years. If you left after a year, you would pay an early termination fee because they've given you the phone. So what they do now is, and T-Mobile was the first one that said, no, these contracts are stupid, forget the contracts. Well, now all the carriers kind of do similar to a contract. So let's just say you went with T-Mobile or Verizon, and they'd say, well, we're going to give you $800 credit towards your new phone. And if they do an $800 credit on your phone, you get that $800 in 24 monthly bill credits. So in other words, and let's just make up a number, let's say that's $60 a month. So in other words, they're going to bill you for the phone $60, but then give you a $60 credit. So in essence, you're paying nothing for that, and you are getting that $800 over time. But if for some reason you move out of the country or do something else and you terminate their service after 1 year, you still owe the remainder on the phone because they haven't billed you and they haven't done the bill credit. And they have your credit card and they've done a credit check on you is why they have that. Because they're, in the case of an iPhone Pro Max, could be a $1,400 phone they've extended you credit on. So in the past, the big deals on phones were primarily when you went to a new carrier. The carriers have gotten, and I should point out that I don't know if AT&T is doing it now. I haven't checked. I'll check on it. But instead of 24 months, theirs is based on a 30-month period. Anyway, the carriers used to only give new customers these deals, and more they're looking at customer retention. So they have a tendency to offer some deals. So you want to be ready for that, and you can check with your carrier. Another thing is is there's some real changes in the industry. So we'll start from the top. Verizon owns a company called Visible Wireless. And in the past, you've always heard about all these crickets, these PCS Cellular. There's all these other Virgin, Consumer Cellular, all of those out there. These are called MVNOs, which means Mobile Virtual Network Operator. And how they work is they buy wholesale data from whichever phone carrier they're using, and they buy minutes from them for the phone calls. And so they're a reseller. So Verizon, all the companies got smart, and I think T-Mobile was the first one. They said, well, all these other MVNOs are out there. Let's go ahead and let's acquire an MVNO. And it was PCS, which used to be Metro PCS. So T-Mobile acquired them to have a, quote, lower tier service to be competitive in the market price-wise. Because the three main carriers are a little bit more expensive than the MVNOs because they sponsor sports events and stadiums and all that other stuff that's visibility. So AT&T has an MVNO, and that's Cricket Wireless. And Verizon, and it only recently have they really let people know that it's out there. They kind of hid it, they didn't want people to go from Verizon to there. And it's called visible.com or Visible Wireless. And the deal is, whoever their owned MVNO is, that's the towers they used. So with Visible, you would get exactly the same coverage you have with Verizon. Now, Verizon and AT have been losing a tremendous amount of customers to T-Mobile because there's some very good incentives to go to T-Mobile. And Verizon is now, they used to be so expensive. They do have some new rates. You should shop your rates all the time and see, but also they have better rates with Visible. So you'll just want to check into that. But Verizon has always been the best for very rural coverage, and that's going to end fairly soon. And I'll address that in just a minute. But going back to these, as far as customer service in the surveys that happen, there's also Mint Mobile out there, I should mention. And the MVNOs don't usually give you incentives on the phones themselves, but their rates are lower. So there's another one out there called Mint Mobile. There's another one called Fi, which is Google, which is pretty darn good. And the one from the Walmart Carlos Slim one, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, they're out there, but just remember, now customer service is a big deal. Those of you that have been with AT&T or Verizon are aware of it, that good customer service is lacking. So the first in customer service in all the reviews is Consumer Cellular, and Consumer Cellular is very good on customer service, and they buy time. They're an MVNO, and they buy from the other ones. There's not a lot of bells and whistles on it, but they have good customer service and good coverage. T-Mobile is number 2 and first of the big carriers. And then I don't know what the others, where they rank, but it I think Verizon is a little bit above AT&T. So if that's important to you. Now, I am a staunch advocate of T-Mobile. If you travel internationally at all, you should be on T-Mobile. T-Mobile 5 years ago didn't have as much rural coverage as they do now, but T-Mobile was just rated by, there's an independent company that does the testing on it, and they rated T-Mobile the top as far as speed. Verizon was still winning out in the rural areas, and AT&T kind of doesn't place in there very well at all. But the people I know that have switched to T-Mobile, with only a few exceptions, absolutely love it. And they're rolling out a new thing that will come out next year. And I discussed this at the last meeting, is if you're in an area like in the middle of Montana where there's no cell coverage, the the Starlink satellites that SpaceX is putting up, you'll be able to use your regular phone as long as it's a newer phone, and you will not be able to do voice calls right away because that takes a little bit more, but you could get a text message to someone. This is in the case of, let's say you're up hiking in a very remote trail and something happens and you need to get a message to somebody to tell them to call search and rescue and come meet you. Or you have a daily check-in with family just to see like that. It will send a text message up to the satellite and then down to the other individual. And you do nothing extra, and T-Mobile will include it on most of their plans. So that's coming, and that's with T-Mobile. And what they're trying to do is expand it and have other carriers get on board from other countries and have reciprocal agreements. So you could be at the top of the Matterhorn and have it work there for you. So that's coming, and that's a draw with T-Mobile. But for international, you get in 220 countries, you get free data when you're there, you get free text. And when you're doing Wi-Fi calling, most of that is covered. And then if you have to make a phone call using cellular, when you're over in, well, we said Switzerland, for instance, it's 25 cents a minute is all. So anyway, consider that. And I'm going to show you what's happening with Verizon. Now, Verizon has the best coverage in rural areas because they have a very old technology, which is called CDMA. And gosh, I can't, anyway, forget what it means. It's the old 3G. And for the last 3 years, they've been saying they're going to decommission it. Well, this is from their website, and it is decommissioning it, and it's an FCC kind of thing. So this is where this is an older type of radio network that Verizon used, not for most of their calls, but in the rural areas, they use this. So it will be decommissioned the end of this year. And maybe before, but they say no later. I'm sure they'll go kind of right up to the end and do that because it is dramatic for people that are in fringe areas. So that rural coverage that you Verizon people have always had, that's great. First of all, the good news is Verizon is putting in more of their LTE towers. T-Mobile is putting in a lot of towers, and AT&T some. But what T-Mobile has is the old days when channel 10, channel 3, and channel 13, those were called VHF frequencies. Remember when those went away years ago? Well, those got auctioned off, and T-Mobile acquired a lot of those. And they are a lower frequency because UHF is higher. Lower frequencies travel farther distances and go through walls better. So they have those mid-range bands. They have quite a bit of coverage. So that works quite well. And actually, a side note about coverage, people are all psyched about 5G. Well, 5G kind of comes in two flavors. There's long distance and rural 5G, and then there's suburban or city 5G. City 5G is super fast, but you need 4 times as many towers because the tower doesn't shoot out as far. So while it's fast, it doesn't have the distance, and that's because of the higher frequency of the wave. They do have the lower bands that go out farther, and that's how they're covering it. But 5G in general is not the cure to rural phone service. It will still be what we have is called LTE. So any questions on phone service coverage and stuff before we go on from there? And I should point out that there are some links that I gave Al, and they are, let me see if, got to get caught up. There's the top 3 links I sent. Yeah, here's about T-Mobile and coverage. Al's put in there, but there are links, and what you can do is for that. In fact, I'll go and click on my links. Hang on a sec here. I'll bring those up. So if you go to clark.com, and this is, they constantly, he has staff, so this was last updated on August 17th, and it lists the carriers and gives you all the information. You know, this is even hard to find at the carrier site. So they go through all of them. There's visible, and this will give you a pathway, and then go check the carriers. So then there was, this is an article from 9 to 5 Mac, T-Mobile versus AT&T. I thought was pretty good, and it says for iPhone 14 buyers, and then T-Mobile versus Verizon. And you can infer that I didn't see that they did it in AT&T versus Verizon, but all those things will be in the chat that Al does for you. So let's write that. All right, back to my keynote. Great. Shut the chat. All right. So again, your four main characters, the carriers, I said. Why is that in there twice? Why am I going backwards? That's not good. Oh, hang on. Okay. So now we're going to talk about Siri and dictation. And again, please don't hesitate to interrupt if you have any questions or comments. I don't mind that a bit, and it's always good. So this guy, a Norwegian guy, Dag Kitlaus, had always liked the name Siri, and because in Norwegian it means beautiful woman who leads you to victory. And he was saving that name for his daughter, but he's never had a daughter. He only has a boy. And so he decided, when he was with Nuance, he developed this, and it's beyond dictation, it's artificial intelligence tied in with text to speech. And he named it Siri. And what I find interesting is, I found this article only recently, and it talks about that. And he also talks about how he met up with Steve Jobs. And so he had developed it, and Jobs heard about it, and he had started this company, and they were going to put it on Blackberries and Androids and stuff. And then got a call from Steve, and Steve flew him out to his house. They had a 3-hour chat in Steve's house, and everybody has always said he was very convincing. So they bought Siri for $20 million. I'm sorry, $200 million. So, and Jobs didn't like the name, but as it turns out, they didn't find a better one, so they left it. And I'm sure that was good for him, and he probably lobbied that because that name meant a lot to him. It was essentially his daughter. But I found this recently in here about what it has another meaning that's in Wikipedia, and it's speech interpretation and recognition interface, which is pretty good. So you can decide Siri is either one. So anyway, I have a love-hate relationship with Siri. It's gotten better all the time. I find my watch does one of the best jobs with Siri. But when you think about what it's doing, it really is amazing. We're going to describe how it works here. So now on the Macs, you have Siri also. You have it on your watch. You have it in your earbuds and your AirPods. So Siri is everywhere. And how does Siri work? So how Siri works is there's a supercomputer up in the cloud. We always call it the cloud. In the case with Apple, our nearest one is a huge server farm just east of Sparks, Nevada. And the exit is called Mustang, which is where the old Mustang Ranch was. And that has fame for a lot of other reasons. Anyway, if you look on the left as you're going along Highway 80, you'll see this nondescript, huge, multiple buildings spread out, and that's the server farm. And then at certain angles, you can see above it, they have the largest solar array I've ever seen covering the mountainside. It's amazing. when we get out of this, I may try to do a Google Maps of it to see if we can see it, because it's amazing. I've driven up to it and the guard won't let you in, but you could kind of see it was Apple. So I knew that it was Apple. They also have a server farm in Redmond, Washington. They have their original one in Maiden, North Carolina, and I'm sure they put other ones nearby, because that's where all your cloud is. That's where iTunes is. That's where the Apple TV Plus is. All of that stuff is on the servers there. And each of those servers, just like having 2 time machine backups, each of those servers is a mirror of all the other servers. So something dramatic could happen with one. The other ones are online constantly, and they have the same data redundant across all of them. And this is the same place where Apple stores all their own inside information, along with having some other in-house servers, but they back it up to that. So they're redundant and they're good. And the reason they put multiple ones up across the country is because when you're moving a lot of data, the closer you are to that data center, the quicker that data can go back and forth. So by positioning them nearer to where the people are using them, it gets a little better throughput, but the others are there as a backup. So we have a microphone on virtually all our devices except for the Mac Mini and I think the new Studio does, but anyway. So the microphone is how you're going to input things to Siri. So what really happens when you initiate Siri, and we'll show you a couple ways to do that, it records what you're saying. Once it records what you're saying, it sends it up to that big supercomputer, and then it crunches it and does some stuff to it and says, and like tries to differentiate. If you said, the word two can be two or two. So what it will do is it will try help you out and contextualize it by what your sentence was, and using artificial intelligence, it usually gets the correct one. Then it sends it right back to your phone. And what's amazing is how fast this happens. It doesn't work when you don't have an internet connection. So you'll get, I can't do that right now, or something like that with Siri. It used to be more prominent. It happens less and less. I will point out that on your iOS device and on your Mac, if you do straight dictation, you can choose to have it downloaded to your device, and it does not require an internet connection to do dictation. Okay, so that's how it works. It also works using the HomePods. So the original HomePod or the HomePod Mini. Cool thing with the HomePod Mini, they're these little spheres, and if you put 2 of them in a room right next to each other, they automatically turn into stereo, and they work quite well. And to activate them, you say the word "Hey" and the word "Siri." All right, now, a lot of you have more people in your home than you. So this is a thing, and I recommend taking a picture of this, and I'm not positive if I put this in the links. I think I did. But this is what happens when you have a HomePod and you have multiple people. Because what happens is, let's say there are 3 of you in the house. If you say, when is my next appointment? Well, you want it to use your iCloud calendar to tell you that it's your appointment. If you have a playlist in Apple Music, you want it to be your playlist that you play. So this is how you set it up to recognize your specific voice versus someone else's. Now, it doesn't go into detail here as if you're Sybil and you have a split personality. I don't know how that works. I'll leave that up to those of you that have that. All right. So I'm going to just put this up there, and I encourage you to take a picture, either a screenshot or a picture with your phone. And these are some ways to go through it. And it's too lengthy. And in fact, with the way doing a Zoom, interacting with Siri makes it difficult. So it's very hard to do this. So I have this page and the next page. And I'm sorry, but I don't have, these are in the links not directly to this page, but in the Siri links from Apple. So I'll give you another couple seconds. Get your phone, turn your phone sideways, take a picture of your screen, or do a screenshot. And this is also another group of things you can do that's about Siri. And I got this from the Siri guide, which is in the links also. So I'll leave that up a second for you to take a picture of it. Fantastic.
You have a hand up.
Oh, I don't see it. Oh, a physical hand? Okay, go ahead and ask your question. Unmute yourself. Was someone had a question?
It was Donna.
Donna, did you have a question? Go ahead.
You're muted.
You're still muted.
I don't have my hand up.
I was
Okay.
there a second ago. Anyway,
Oh, thank
sorry
you.
for the interruption.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. So there's other devices. And so by the way, when you use HomePods and Siri, it interacts with HomeKit, which is Apple's infrastructure that you can have locks, lights, things like that. So Amazon also has a very large infrastructure and multiple devices. So some of the things you see here is the Echo Show, which is that screen you see. They come in 5 and I think 12 inch, and they'll show you if you have a Ring doorbell, it'll show up there and stuff. So it adds video. Oh gosh, hiccups. I'm sorry. The it'll show people at your door. You can, when you ask it questions, it'll do it. Nice thing is, if you're listening to Amazon Music in there, it will show you lyrics. By the way, on the Amazon devices, you can use Apple Music. You tell it to do that. They've got all these cameras and the dot and all those other things. So on the far right, they have these glasses, which are I think they have to be. I don't think they work with an iPhone. They used to only work with Android. And then there's the Aura ring, which is that ring that's to the left of the glasses, and that's a ring that it kind of connects you, and it's like having an Echo device, but it still has to go through your phone to do everything. And then the headphones or the earpods. And I should mention again, the AirPods work wonderful for Siri. You can just say the word "hey" and the word "Siri," and they will pop up, and you just talk to them, and they will give you the replies. A couple of the other devices you see now that both Apple and Amazon have the spherical small ones. And this is an interesting one that has a clock coming through the case that's very subtle and shows you that. But remember, you can just ask these devices what time it is. So that's not that big a deal. When we go into the demo, I'm going to talk about Hound. It used to be called SoundHound, and that's a little different artificial intelligence. And then at the end, depending on what time we have left, we'll dig down into shortcuts. So at this point, I take the biggest risk known to man, and we do a live demo. So I'm going to turn off my share. And I'm going to do this and say hide others. Great. So on my computer, up in the upper right corner, I have Siri. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Hang on here. Let's share. I meant to share it again. All right. So I have Siri up in the corner. Now actually, I take that back. Let's talk about, I'm going to do dictation first. So let me do this. And I'm going to display my phone. Great. So I'm going to go in. Well, actually, let's do settings first because we need to do this. So in settings on your phone, you go on down to Siri and search. And Siri kind of is your search for everything. So if you don't have the first one on where it says listen for hey and the word Siri, if it's not on, don't turn it on now because it will actually have you speak some phrases. And those phrases, with me talking, it might mess it up. And it will ask you, like, what's to say the word hey and the word Siri, what's the weather today? It does a few of these phrases that are between quotation marks, just like it shows there. And it will learn your voice. That way, if you're in amongst a bunch of people at lunch and they say the word hey and the word Siri, it usually doesn't activate yours. The other one is, the next one below that is either press side button or home button should be on. And the last one is to allow Siri when locked. That means when your screen is dark, allow Siri to work. So I recommend your language is English. And the Siri voice, you have a choice of Siri voices. But let me tell you one thing that actually I take that back. If you go here, it used to be, when Siri first came out, it was a female voice. And I can remember at St. Mark's in the fireside room giving a Siri class. And you'll see when I do dictation, the punctuation is important. And you say the word period and it would put the word period in. Well, I had a lady come up to me and she say, I keep saying the word period and it spells it out. It does not put the period at the end of the sentence. And I said, wow. So I had her try it. And I noticed it was a male voice. And at that time, American Siri, English Siri, didn't have a male voice. So she had British on there. And the Brits end the sentence with full stop is what a period means. So I tried that and sure enough, it worked. So we had to change her back to English. And then when she says the word period, and I tested it out and I'll show you when I do my dictation here. Hockey, instead of using quarters, because there's 3 periods, you say period and then period works at the end. I'll show you. But the voices are great and they've gotten better and they're very realistic. One thing about Siri is Siri has a bit of an attitude. And I think that's great because I think part of that is that helps us embrace this artificial intelligence because she's a little plucky. And why not? And so I think that helps dramatically. I equate that to very similar to when we scroll and we get to the bottom, and it bounces like that. That's called the rubber band effect. It just doesn't seem so mechanical. It's very nice. So you can set that now in Siri responses. Now, you can set this that you only get a verbal response at the bottom there, only with the word hey and the word Siri. That means only give me a voice response over the speaker if I say that, because that means you're away from it. Or only when silent is off, silent being the switch on the side, or always. So I was having trouble when I was prepping for this. I couldn't get Siri to come up. And so luckily somebody had a question in the beginning before we started it, and I turned it on to always, and now it works. So I'm going to also show Siri captions, and I'm going to show speech, just because it gives us a little bit more as we're going along. So I would recommend the top one and then the other 2. So announce calls is really nice. And I only use this, I don't want to be in the middle of, I always have my phone on silent anyway. But if for some reason it was on, I don't want it to announce who's calling. That to me is distracting. So I have mine for headphones only. And that means when I have my AirPods in, my phone's probably in my pocket, or some of you may have it in your purse. This way it will announce who's calling. It will either read you the number, but if that person's in your address book, it will read you that name. So you have the choices here. Headphones in car the same way. If you're using Bluetooth in the car, it announces who the caller is. So therefore you don't have to turn and look at the phone and see who it is. So that's under announced calls. Announced notifications. This is one I find a little bit, like if I'm listening to a podcast, it will tell me that I've gotten a text from so-and-so and it'll read it. I kind of like that and I kind of don't, so whatever. And then it asks you if you want to reply and things like that. But these are notifications. They're not really related to Siri as much as it's just feedback. Your information, you just use the My Card. You go into your address book and find yourself. And then the Siri and dictation history, it stores it on the phone. And if you're really worried about what you might have said to Siri, you can delete it. But there's no need to. The nice thing is it uses that to formulate when you're saying people's names or things like that. By the way, when you use Siri or dictation, it consults your address book and looks for proper names. So that helps when you try to say someone's name, but it can be a bit problematic. So one thing I tell people is, if I'm sending Al Tribbett a text message, I don't need to start out the text message and say, Al, hey, what do you think of this? Because he knows his name and it doesn't always get proper names, especially if it's not in your address book. Bev, feel free to ask your question.
Yes, on my screen, I have my phone up to what you have, and it'll go. I don't have announce notifications. It goes from announce calls straight to my information. So I have something set off. I have an iPhone XS.
Good question. Anybody else notice that? It possibly is that you have notifications completely off, but I don't know. So my recommendation is you could play with that and see if it comes up. You got me on that one. I've never touched mine. Mine is what it is by default. So I've never modified anything there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if you find out, let us know. So content from Apple. So Siri is also your search. In fact, even with Spotlight now, Siri and Apple is wrapping everything around Siri. For instance, if you went into your contacts, it'll show people that have been in your email. Is this their email address for this contact and thing? But these are all on. I do these by default. I haven't changed any of those, and I would leave them on. And then you can go specific into the apps if you want. I won't go into that, but these bottom ones here, those are what mine are by default. I haven't messed with them, so I don't have a lot of experience with them being different. So that's again under your settings on your iOS, and you go down to Siri and okay, I'm going past it now. There it is. Siri and search right between wallpaper. Let me look on the computer because I have never done my Siri settings on here. So I don't know that there are specific settings for it. No, I don't think there is. So the way you can check that in your system preferences, I just go up here to search and I type in Siri. So, how was I missing that? Okay,
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
So in this case, you can choose the voices, but when you click on the left, enable Ask Siri, then you click it, it will actually record your voice like it does on the iOS device, and then you select it here. Always listen for it and always allow. And again, remember those 2 pages that I brought up that Al has got some links about. If you have multiple devices, how does it, that's a whole nother page, is how does it determine which one you're going to use? So voice feedback is on, which is good because then it feeds back to you on the speaker. So again, it's in system preferences in this little highlight right here. Okay. So, and it's wonderful on the Mac. It's been great. All right. So that's it for system preferences. Now, during this presentation, I'm going to activate it using a button. So I have a Face ID phone. So to activate it, I press and hold the button on the right side. And I encourage you, you can press it and bring it up, and I'll just show you that. Oops. I didn't hold it long enough. Hang on. So once it comes up, I can talk. Cancel.
I'm sorry.
So the pressing and holding the button helps when you're learning Siri, because it won't time out on you. Because if you think about it, someone like me who uses Siri hands-free a tremendous amount, if I'm waiting for it to either send that message or do something like that, I don't want to wait forever for it to time out. If you're new to dictating, it's gonna be too fast for you. So in that regard, oh, and by the way, so it's the button on the right on a Face ID phone, and on a Touch ID phone, it's the home button on the very bottom. But what I'm going to do is going to give you Siri with training wheels. So I'm bringing up an email here, and I'm going to use dictation. So on your iOS device, and I'll show you how to do it on a Mac afterwards, anywhere you have a keyboard, you should have a microphone on. And let me show you where to go if it's not. And I just simply am going to go into settings and search, and I'm going to say dictation. Enable dictation. It's under keyboards. Under keyboards, you come on down and you click enable dictation. And when you click enable dictation, it says, we're going to download a dictionary for you. Is that okay? So if you really want this on, this is very, very helpful. And even if you dislike Siri, this is great that it's not Siri. And I'm going to show you how that works. So, and again, it's under keyboards. So dictation, anywhere you have a keyboard on any iOS device, you'll have a microphone right down here in the corner. When I tap that microphone, it will start reading what I say. The problem is, everybody, when they start doing this, they say, okay. And then they start saying what they were going to say. Well, it's going to type O and okay for you. But I tell people the best way to think about doing dictation is to think in phrases but speak in words. And by doing that, you're likely to enunciate each word because you're speaking each word. And it doesn't mean you have to do it slow. It can take it very fast. It just means you should enunciate each word. And the reason I say think in phrases is because if you think in a phrase, you're more likely to use punctuation. So we'll do a little bit of a demo here on that. So when I tap the microphone, it will start typing what I say, period. You'll notice at the bottom, there's a keyboard, or some of you may have another microphone, comma, and that's what you tap to stop dictation, period. Okay? So that did it. I'm going to erase all that. And everybody asks, how do you correct? Well, if you have accessibility issues, there are in the accessibility section, there's things where you can do total control of the phone or the Mac using your voice. You can say, go back a word, or you know, correct this, do things like that. Simple dictation doesn't do that. But as you see me do a bunch of dictation, you might see it correcting things along the way because it does a really good job. Now, this again uses the supercomputer, and you'll see how fast it is. When you use dictation, comma, remember, comma, it is true, quote, speech to text dictation, closed quote, period. New line. This means that it will, quote, type, closed quote, exactly what you say, period. While you're dictating, comma, don't forget punctuation, period. New line. If you say the word new, comma, and the word line, comma, it will put in what is essentially the old style carriage return, period. New paragraph. If you say the word new and the word paragraph, comma, it will give you a double carriage return, comma, starting a new paragraph, period. Okay, so it did a great job, and I didn't notice any. Oh, and the other thing is, try not to read it when it's doing it because it throws you off. It's almost like if you've ever had the experience where you hear yourself speaking, but you have an echo in a headset where you're hearing yourself. It's very hard to continue going because you're hearing the word you just said, and it's very difficult, which, by the way, believe it or not, that's how stutterers get cured. But for this, it throws you off. So you just don't even really look at it because you're not going to be able to make a correction right then. So don't even look at it. And it did a pretty damn good job. So you notice I use punctuation. And we talked about undo earlier. Well, I dictate so much that if the rare time I call somebody and leave a voicemail message, more often than not, it will go something like, "Hi, this is Ken, comma, please give me a call when you get a chance, exclamation mark." And then I do a face palm and put my hand up there. I go, "Oh my God." And then I have to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I think I'm dictating," and all that. And the problem is there's no undo. So if I do a mistake doing dictation, if I'm leaving someone a voicemail, it's not dictation, but I'm punctuating while I'm talking to them. And it's happened more than once. And I think it's because I'm in the habit of using punctuation for dictation. Now, I recommend dictation is the precursor, and it's where you can work and try and do different things. Because you notice it will pause when I stop speaking, but it will go for a long time. It used to only go for 30 seconds. I think it goes beyond that now. But if you pause for a while, it will then turn itself off, and then you can start it again. Let's say that you're speaking, comma, and it's typing for you, comma, it will, after a certain amount of time, comma, turn off, period. Or not. Okay, comma, just hit the keyboard and it will stop. It used to time out at 30 seconds. So anyway, it's not now. It does time out after a little while. And I think it's time. It's not that it's not listening the whole time. So that's speech to text dictation. I will show you it on a Mac in a minute, but I want to finish up on the phone with a few things here first. So if I dictate something, comma, remember, comma, it is literal to what you said, period. New paragraph. Will I need a jacket tonight? Question mark. New paragraph. I'm drunk. Exclamation mark. So let's see what happens when I invoke Siri. Will I need a jacket tonight?
The low temperature will be 70 degrees Fahrenheit tonight.
By the way, did that come through? Could you guys hear that?
Yes, yes.
Great. So it took me saying, will I need a jacket tonight? Dictation just types it. The artificial intelligence in Apple's supercomputer said, Ken asked what the temperature was. And by his phone, I know he's in Lincoln. So it put the low temperature tonight will be 84. And of course, I won't need a jacket. But that's just a way of saying it. So let's see what happens now. I'm drunk.
Please be safe. If you want me to call or text someone, just ask.
So it's interpreting that. And it used to say, do you want me to call a taxi or call Uber? I think too many people were messing up with that, but I could just say, call me an Uber or text someone. So again, it's interpreting what was said and trying to do something useful. Barbara, you have a question. Go right ahead.
What if you need to mention someone's name when you're dictating something? I've had that happen, and it screws it up so badly you can't tell what it is, but the message needs to say something about getting together with a specific person.
Yeah. So generally speaking, if it's someone that's in your address book, it usually gets the name correct. You may have people that spell the word Lori different ways. And so it kind of does that. So why, in that case, if you use the person's first and last name, where normally you would just use the first name, it will further refine what's in your address book and it'll more likely get it correct.
Oh.
But like, for instance, my name, Ken, many times if you just said Ken, it might do can, C-A-N. And so that's why proper names can be a problem. It's gotten better. But if they're in your address book or you've had some communication, it'll do it. But sometimes it's a pain too because you don't want to, it's just weird. So in that case, you finish your dictation and you come back and just correct that.
Okay, you just tap your finger in and type in the correct name.
Tap your finger, move your finger around with it, So let's do this. Here is how to do correction, comma, on an iPhone, period. You simply, I don't know why it cut out, but anyway. You simply put your see, it tried to do an emoji there. Hang on here. See, so it's weird. So I just delete out and start over. Put like a space in. So to do correction on dictation, comma, you wait till you're done and then you come back by tapping the area where you want to make the correction, comma, and move your finger, comma, which moves the cursor, period. I will show you now. Let's just say I wanted to do this. So I'm putting the cursor so you see, let's say I'm going to just eliminate the and. So I try to tap pretty close to it. And it usually finds the beginning of the next word. But I'm going to say, let's say it accidentally puts it there. If I press and hold, you'll see as I'm pressing and holding, I can move my finger wherever I want. And when you get close, rather than moving your finger, just roll your finger left and right. You can be more accurate. So I've moved my finger by sliding it. But now when I get to where I want to be, I simply roll my finger. And that's a way to get more accurate.
There's a better way to move the cursor now.
I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
You're talking about the pad?
No, I'm talking about using a space key.
Oh, all right. Tell me.
Just hold down the space key.
Ah, perfect. Thank you.
Move it anywhere you want.
Fantastic.
That started with iOS 15.
Thank you, Bob. Hey, I'm glad I came to this class today.
Both of
Me
those are
too.
great tips. Both of those are great tips. Thank you.
So if you're on an iPad, what you do is when the keyboard is up, you place 2 fingers on the keyboard, and they have to be spread apart just a little bit. They have to be about 1 finger width apart. And it's very similar to what we just did with the space bar, which I'm sure on the iPad, somebody can try it. It may work on that too.
It works on both.
Okay. But the other thing is the way the iPad's always had it is if you put 2 fingers spread apart and then you just move them around, it moves the cursor the same way. So maybe for consistency, Bob's little tip, Bob's huge tip does that. And so it's really nice, but the same applies. If you want to get really accurate, just practice rolling your finger when you get nearby where you're going to be, because then you can get right in between them. Another thing is, let's say I want to eliminate the word where. If I double tap on the word where, I can just do that and I can simply hit the delete key, or I can copy and paste it. While we're here, another great thing is if you have a word and you want to check what it is, hit the arrow to the right and you can say look up, and it gives you a dictionary definition of that. And that applies not just when you're dictating and stuff, that applies if you're reading an email, if you're in Safari, somewhere like that. Okay, Bob, that is wonderful. Thank you very much.
I'm surprised I got past a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've been using it for a while. I love it.
Oh, it's awesome. In fact, I'm trying to think. Yeah. Yeah, by the way, too, you can do you don't have to type anymore. You can do called the swipe. So I'm gonna type Apple, APPLE. I'm sliding my finger to do that. Some people like that, and it's built into the keyboard, I think since iOS 14 or something. So great job. All right, I'm gonna get rid of all this. Okay. So I'm gonna do a couple things on the computer now, and let's see if it shows up. What's the current time?
It's 11:05 a.m.
All right, so I'm going to share my computer rather than the phone. It's just more visible. So when Siri is up, oh, Siri's not showing up on your computer. Let's see here. What's the temperature?
It's about 88 degrees outside.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. So whenever Siri is up, whether it be on your phone, and by the way, if you can see on my, up here on the menu bar, if you have the Siri indicator up there, and I'm just tapping that. So you can see that, and I don't know if my picture's in the way for you. Actually, let's do this. What is 2 plus 2? What is 2 plus 2?
It's 4.
Okay, so I'm going to close Siri. Come on, I got to move my Zoom window out of the way. Oh, what the heck? Oh, gosh.
So we're seeing a black screen, Ken.
I know, and I'm trying to get this up. Thank you. Oops. I have instigated. Okay, great. What is 2 plus 2?
The answer is 4.
That's not coming up for you guys. That's weird. It showed for a second. What is 1 plus 1?
The answer is 2.
All right. Well, we're going to go back to the phone then, because it's just nice to see it on the screen. Okay. All right. So again, well, I'm going to show you what is 1 plus 1.
That would be 2.
So you see that there's this weird orb at the bottom. So that means that I still haven't exited out of Siri. So I simply tap that with my finger and it initiates Siri. What is 2 times 2?
It's 4.
So Siri's up and that continues to go. So you don't have to say the word hey or the word Siri and the word Siri or hit any of your buttons because that thing is up. The same thing applies on the Mac, but the problem was it wouldn't show up on the Zoom screen share. So we know what 1 plus 1 and 2 plus 2 is, but what is 0 divided by 0?
If nothing is divided by nothing, then there's nothing to divide or divide it with, and the division never happened. So my answer is no.
Unfortunately, they used to have a really snarky response, and it was 0 divided by 0 is 0. And it used to say, and it'd be like if you had 0 friends divided by, you have 0 friends. And then they changed it to be, then you have 0 cookies. And now it's kind of become not as good. So with Siri, I'm gonna do, I use navigation a lot on my phone. And I have 3 different types of navigation on my phone. I have Google Maps, and Waze. And if you haven't used Apple Maps in a while, it's gotten much, much better. It can do multiple waypoints, does a lot of other things. It's gotten great. So if I simply say to Siri, navigate to Sacramento International Airport.
Getting directions to Sacramento International Airport.
And without me doing anything, it will,
Starting route to Sacramento International Airport.
just on cue, start navigating.
Head southeast on Briarcliff Lane.
So your phone could be in your pocket and it will navigate for you. So it automatically went into it. If I went to Apple Maps and if I cancel that and I typed in, oh, come on, let's end. So now if I say, if I had typed it in, it's going to give me route choices. If you use strictly your voice, it will give you the fastest route. Now, there are some settings in the different apps you can do to like avoid, like here, avoid tolls or highways. So it will use that information when you're figuring your directions. But by whatever you've set there, actually, this would be a good example. Let's do this. Let's say avoid highways. So now my route is different because it's doing that. And let's see if Siri, by default, will do that. Navigate to Sacramento International Airport.
Getting directions to Sacramento International Airport.
And you'll notice now it avoided the freeways because that's my preference.
Starting route to Sacramento International Airport.
Normally when you
Head southeast on Briarcliff Lane.
Normally when you enter it, when you're just doing it manually like this, it puts up choices. And in this case, it chose that because I have avoid highways off. Okay?
Ken,
Yes.
2 quick questions, hopefully. On my, when I plug in where to go, it now, it's been defaulting to the bus instead of the car route. I haven't been able to figure out how to get it to default back to just car.
So what you do here is just do one of those searches and then touch car. And then the next time it should stay on car.
Okay, hopefully. And
So,
then,
and then we're gonna, let's try this to see if this works with my little scenario. I'm gonna try this. Give me walking directions to Orchard Creek Lodge.
Getting walking directions to Orchard Creek Lodge.
So that's that. Or give me driving direct. Well, it's almost the same, but yeah, but it is
What do you
walking.
want to message?
Cancel. So that would be, and then if I go back to here, it should keep it. And by the way, they've improved the bike apps, and I think this is what, hailing service, yeah, Uber and all that. Beth, you had a Bev, you had a follow up.
Yes, when I want to not use my location, my current location, to where I want to go, but I want to take a different location, like instead of A to B, I want to do where I'm at A, I want to do B to C. Sometimes I can get two different locations and have the route, but I really have to fuss around.
Let me try some, because I enter that manually usually, but let's try this.
Well, I'm even manually, I've had trouble getting the screen options.
To Sacramento, California.
Getting directions from Roseville to Sacramento.
So that's how it does it.
Okay, well, maybe I just do dictation instead of trying it by the keyboard.
What's that?
Maybe I'll just try dictation instead of trying to get the
No,
keyboard
this is
screen.
Siri. This is Siri, not dictation.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the other thing is that you can also say, if someone's in your address book, give me directions to so-and-so's house, and it'll do that, but it has to be in your address book. If you say, give me directions to home, well, let's try this. Give me directions to Home Depot.
Which Home Depot?
And so you pick which one, and those obviously aren't in your address book. Cancel.
Home is where I'm helpful.
But what I want to point out is I use Waze more than anything. So I can now say, give me directions to Sacramento International Airport using Waze.
Getting directions to Sacramento International Airport using Waze.
And why do you like Waze?
A couple of reasons. It shows you where the police are. It routes around traffic quite well. I have all these different ways of doing it. And I know we have a few Tesla owners in the audience, and more all the time, so I'm going to show you a little trick here in a minute, since has really nothing to do with Siri. But anyway, so it does Waze, so I'll quit Waze and I'll quit that. So I'm going to go to my contacts, and let's just use my card. Let's see, contacts, my card. So there's my address. If you're in contacts and you tap the map to the right, you tap that. And if you hit the share button right there, or the button of the ellipsis, the three dots, and hit share, and your Tesla app should show up. If your Tesla app is on, it's not quit in your phone, it's just in the background. And I tap that, and it sent that address to my car. And when I get in my car, that navigation is ready. And those of you also should know that when you use your calendar, if you put an address in it, a real address, let's see. Like here, there was a birthday party on Overland. If I tell it to sync to my calendar, that address would show up in my car when it's time to go to that location. Okay. So again, do such and such using Waze. And again, Siri is the artificial intelligence thing. Oh, and like I can say, give me directions to Sacramento International Airport.
Getting directions to Sacramento International Airport.
So then I can add to it once it gets going here. And it's back to using freeways, which is fine.
Starting route to Sacramento International Airport. Head southeast on Briarcliff Lane.
Navigate to the Apple Store on my route.
Which Apple Store?
I'll say Roseville.
I don't know what that means. If
Oh.
you like, I can't search the web for it.
Oh, it
I'll
was
say
so-
Roseville.
Oh, I blew that because I was tapping it instead of saying it. Navigate to the Apple Store on my route.
Which Apple Store?
Roseville.
Which Apple Store?
At this point, I tapped it.
Probably need to say Apple Roseville.
I understand.
Yeah, anyway, it does it. If you tap it, I think, yeah, Apple Roseville, Bob's probably correct on that. But it does it. So that's kind of enough of navigation. Now, speaking of navigation, let's talk about navigating our phone. So I have hundreds of apps on my phone. I have an app that's pretty long name that Al Tribbett turned me on to a long time ago, and it's called the Photographer's Ephemeris. I could search for that. It's not on my home screen. I can just say launch TPE, and it will launch any app I have. I'm going to try this if it does it this way. Launch the Photographer's Ephemeris. Oh, yeah, see, it gets it both ways. So you can do that to launch any app you want. Actually, while we're at it, this is just a killer app. And that's my house. It shows me sunrise and sunset. Yellow is sunrise, orange is sunset. And if you're going to be doing photography, you can see what's going on. And it's amazing. There's all kinds of things that can implement cloud cover and all of that. So, and there's all my solar panels on my roof. So anyway, and that's obviously not live.
And
So-
June has a question.
Oh, great. June, go right ahead. Unmute
Thank
yourself.
you. 10 days ago, I put in avoid highways just for the heck of it, trying around. And now every time I go to it, it gives me that route. How do I get back to the fastest route being the default?
Are you which navigation are you using? Apple Maps?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if I go to Apple Maps, I want to get into navigate mode, and then you slide, oops. Hang on here. Actually, yeah, you can't. So go in, let's quit it. So if I go to Maps, I don't want to be in navigation mode. I want to be not in navigation mode. And get rid of this. And now I just have my search screen, right?
Uh-huh.
And when I go down here, oh, wait a minute, where'd it go? It was there a minute ago. Maybe I have to be in, let's try this. Ah, there you go. I have to be in navigation. So I'm navigating from one spot to the other, not using voice, because voice will automatically, so the way this works is it comes up and gives me up to 3 choices on how to get there. And if I scroll down, there's where avoid tolls and highways is.
Okay.
But if you're using voice, the problem is it gets you automatically into the navigation and those won't show up as options.
Got
And
it.
this is also, Bev, in your case, this is where you would change it and it should stay with whatever you set it for, whether it's walking. And I should point out that the beauty of even if you don't have Bluetooth in your car and you're not where you can see your phone, if you're using Apple Maps and you have an Apple Watch, and actually Google does it too, but it will vibrate on your watch and it vibrates a certain way. It tells you turn left 200 yards ahead or turn right. And if you're using walking directions, it will actually vibrate a different way, telling you to turn right or turn left with walking directions. So it integrates with the Apple Watch extensively. And it's really pretty good. So that's kind of it for navigation. Anybody else have any navigation questions? Now let's talk about using Siri to do things differently and better. So, okay. So, I'm going to send Al a text message using Siri. So, send Al a text message.
What do you want to say?
Just testing Siri, comma, thanks for being my guinea pig, period. Please respond with a short message, period.
Send it?
Yes.
Done.
So, now, if I were using my headset or hooked to my car, it would have read back to me what I said. So it gives you that test because it knows I'm holding my phone. It knows that I'm reading it. But if you're in a car or hooked to headsets and you invoked it that way, it will read it back to you. So now I'm going to activate Siri and say, read me my most recent text message.
You have recent messages from Al. Al said, great class. Smiley happy. Would you like to reply?
Yes.
What do you want to say?
Well, comma, I'll make sure I double your pay for today! Exclamation mark. Thanks again for always putting great links and information in the chat. It adds to this so much, period.
Send it?
Yes.
Done.
You'll notice it figured it started to do 8 for my it, and I said it, so it took that and didn't correct it, and that's fine. My mistake on reading it. All right, same thing with email. I can say, so the other thing is when I bring it up, I said, send Al a text message. You could also, and again, this is how when you're on training wheels, you'll say, send a text message.
To who?
Al Tribbett.
What do you want to say?
Last test for now.
Send it?
Yes.
Done.
So it walks me through it, but I can also say, send Al Tribbett a text message. Yes, this is really the last one, I think. Question mark.
Send it?
Yes.
Done.
So I can do it, just send a message, and it walks me through and asks me each part. And it's important to use first and last name because if I had 2 Al's in my address book, it would ask me which one. And it's the same with email. It all works the same. You can do the same thing for calling someone. So I can say all together, send Al Tribbett a text message, just testing, or it will prompt me. Now, that's where practice makes perfect. Those prompts, it stays up for a little while, but always be ready for the next step because it may time out and shut off. So anyway, the nice thing is you see it on the screen and how it repeats it. So let me look at my notes here. So I use Siri extensively for daily activities. So whenever I do the reminders class, I never show you how to go make a reminder manually because it's so easy to do it with Siri. It's easier. So I make a reminder and I say, let's see, at 11:30 a.m., remind me to get ready for question and answer.
Okay, added.
So at 11:30, a reminder will pop up with that. While we're on it, reminders are so handy, and a reminder can be one of 3 ways. That was a time-based reminder. So for instance, it's Labor Day weekend now, and let's say I remember, on Tuesday, I have to call and make a dentist. Actually, I do have to do that. On Tuesday, I have to call and change my dentist appointment because I'm going to be traveling for my teeth cleaning. So I will make that. On Tuesday at 10 a.m., remind me to change teeth cleaning appointment.
Okay, added.
So that's again a time-based one. Now, if I were to put this on my calendar, it'd be a little different. But by making it as a reminder, it will pop up and remind me. And then we're going to see a reminder pop up here in 2.5 minutes. But it works quite well. If I were making the appointment, I would say, on September 12th, schedule my teeth cleaning appointment. But I use this for all of that. Back to reminders, though. They can be time-based. They can also just be a list of things. Add such and such to my reminders. Fertilize the lawn, things like that. In fact, I have an ongoing reminder every, I think it's 8 weeks, that the fertilize the lawn comes up. The other thing, they can be location-based. So the thing like that is let's say that you're visiting family and you want to remember that you need to stop by Home Depot on the way home. Your phone has a geofence. It always knows where it is. And if you made the reminder that said, when I leave here, remind me to pick up 16 penny nails at Home Depot. Boom. So that means it knows your location. Your family member's house you're at may not even be in your address book. It doesn't matter because your phone always knows where it is. So it's got a geofence. And when you get 300 feet away from where you are, it will pop up and say, remember to stop by Home Depot and pick up 16 penny nails. And you'll go there. And it's not telling you which Home Depot or anything. You're on your own for that. So, and you would use navigation at that point. But I use that commonly. In fact, when I go skiing, I have an app that tracks me all day long that shows, when I'm done, it shows me how much vertical I've gotten, how fast I went, how far I traveled. And it even has a moving pin that shows me where I skied all day long and at what time. And it's wonderful. But it's hard to remember that.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
Hey, yeah. And somebody, whoever that was, needs to be on mute, please. So the, let's see. There, my reminder just popped up. It didn't pop up on my phone because I have it on silent. I'm sorry, I have my notifications off. I have it there. But my reminder popped up on my iPad here. And it would normally pop up on my phone, but because we're doing this, it didn't. And it says, reminders, get ready for question and answer. So that popped up 20 seconds ago. Anyway, so this app, the ski tracking thing, what I do there is I tell it, when I get to the gondola, which is where we usually start at North Star, I tell my thing, I say, when I get here, remind me ski tracks. So the beauty of it is, whenever I get nearby, I get a little notification and it vibrates on my wrist and it reminds me to turn on ski tracks. But then at the end of the day, when I get within 300 foot of that same spot, it reminds me ski tracks. So then, I got to turn it off. And I can remember years ago, I was going down Highway 99 and I saw a billboard on the side of the road and it said, I wish I could remember the name of the barbecue, but it was the 8 Mile Road exit. There's a big sign. It was a really nice looking sign. And I saw that sign and it was in the morning and I said, well, I'm always up to look for good barbecue. And I said on my phone, I waited until I got south of the freeway ramp by a little bit. And I said, when I arrive here, remind me so-and-so barbecue. And so that night when I came back, I already had dinner. I didn't stop. But another time I was coming back from the San Jose, or during the day from San Jose, and I go along and it pops up and says, remember such and such barbecue, or no, check out barbecue. So I was before the freeway exit and I got off, and I actually used, at that point, I used Apple Maps to find the location. And Apple Maps took me to a location, there was nothing there. And I'm like, wow, that's when Apple Maps weren't too good. So I fired up Google Maps, and sure enough, the location was on the other side of the frontage road, and I found it. And I have to say, Apple Maps was trying to do me a favor, because Apple Maps didn't want to take me there because it was not a very good barbecue. So anyway, but it reminds me every time I go back to that location, past that location, as long as I don't turn it off. So time-based, nothing-based, or location-based reminders. Okay? And you can see on my phone that that question and answer came up. You can do things like, what is an 18% tip of $32.68?
The tip is $5.88.
Okay. Let me look here. Oh, you can I think it'll do it. Launch Control Center.
Sorry, I can't open that for you.
Yeah, it used to be able to. But you can use Siri to do things like turn on and off Bluetooth. You can tell it turn on and off Wi-Fi, different things like that. You can do a lot of those controls. I can say launch accessibility, which is inside of settings. So I don't have to dig through all those things to get, oh, actually it didn't get to it. It's, well, that's weird. Oh, I might have been on that screen already. I can do this. I have a fake password. I no longer have an Allstate account. So, and it's gonna not show up anyway, but I can say, what is my Allstate password? And as long as my phone's unlocked, it'll do that. And you don't see it, but I see a bunch of dots. But when I tap it on my phone, it has the password and shows, for this fake account, I have made capital P password 1 my password, and no one should use that. So it'll do it for most of your passwords, but it does make sure that you either use your fingerprint ID or your Face ID or your code to open it.
Donna has a question.
Go for it.
I forgot how you turn off a reminder, such as the one passing by the barbecue store.
Oh, so a time-based reminder when it pops up. In fact, let's show you this first, and that'll go a little bit more. So I have this time-based reminder. If I click and hold on it, I get some options. I can mark it as completed, and that means it goes into my completed box. I can remind me in an hour, and I do this a lot. I can say, remind me this afternoon, remind me tomorrow, or remind me next weekend. So a reminder will do that, and it's great. So, you know, you're in the middle of something, oh, I want to remember this, do that. If you do a location-based reminder, it is there until you actually go in and delete or turn off the reminder. So in this case, you would go to the app, and you can see there I have the turn on ski tracks. And that's actually a zip code in Colorado. I was skiing in Colorado and I wanted it to remind me. So you would just delete it from there. If it's things on your normal list that they sit on reminders, they don't pop up they don't really pop up, they're just part of the list. And you hit the tab, you tap it and it will go away. You hit the box and it goes there. But yeah, so the other thing you can do is you can say, when I get home, remind me to water the lawn or take the trash out. Well, the problem is every time you get home, it's going to do that. And so you would, if it's accomplished what you want, you go into the reminders and you basically delete that particular reminder because it's location based. So therefore it doesn't expire. Time-based reminders expire. Okay, but you can delay them. And I have some I've delayed for days. I'm real good at that. All right, so the other thing I'm going to touch on briefly is shortcuts. And shortcuts, you need to really just follow the tutorials and the links that Al will be posting in it because it's fairly complex. But what I want to do is I'm going to go back and share my, actually, I'm not going to share my screen, but I'm going to spotlight. So everybody can see I use shortcuts for things like okay, that's the right one. Turn on living room fan light. Turn off living room fan light. So I'm using Siri to invoke that. So over here to the right, I have a light. Turn reading light on. Turn reading light off. Then over here, I have my sconce light. Turn sconce light on. Turn sconce light off. I think as soon as it heard sconce. All right. So these are things that I use through a thing called Bond. It's a little device. But for instance, my fans are Hunter fans, and if you get certain ones that have Wi-Fi in them, it is tied directly to HomeKit. So it does it automatically. These other lights, I have this device that does my remotes. So it's a fantastic device. In fact, let me show you. It is wonderful, and I have a little story with it that's interesting. So I'll go to Amazon. It's in my orders. Here it is, Bond.io. Good, they're still available. So this device is really interesting. And this is more on the realm, less Siri, but more home automation. But I use Siri for this. So this little device mimics and repeats whatever your remote control is for your fans. You can do it for certain lights and for certain window shades, but primarily fans. And the whole idea with the fans is you have a remote. Well, a ceiling fan remote is never where you want it to be if you're going to turn the light on or do whatever. So the way to automate it is this device hooks to your network, so it's Wi-Fi. And I set it up when I first got it. My router is in my master bedroom, which is also my office. And I hooked it up, and it controlled the fan in there just fine. So then I came out to my kitchen, just over this way, and sitting at the kitchen, I plugged it in, and I wanted to get the fan that's behind me automated. It was an older fan. It wasn't a Wi-Fi fan at the time. So I told it to learn my remote. So you go into the learn mode. There's an app for this, and you go into learn mode, and this device, when I press the button, reads what it's saying, and then it says, oh, look on the back and see if this FCC number is on there. It knows most of these remotes. And so it says, okay, let's activate it. Well, this device then, it essentially, through the phone, does the same thing as if I press the button on the remote. In other words, it's a repeater. But I don't have to use the remote. I can, on my fan, say, press it and say, turn the fan light on or turn the fan light off. Well, when I was setting this up, this little box, this $100 device, remotes are made three ways. There's radio frequency remotes that are not line of sight, and they work pretty much anywhere in your house. There is infrared, which is line of sight, and those are the ones that the little red dot shows up, and you kind of do that. And there's ultrasonic. Ultrasonic means it's sending sound waves. So every remote is one of those three types of protocols. And when you set this up, it does that. So I'm in the kitchen and I'm next to the sink and I go, man, this worked in my master bedroom. I can't wait to have it work out here. So I set it up and it repeats the remote and it's in there. So now I go to the phone app and I'm not doing Siri yet with it. I just press the button and tell it to turn the fan on. So I press the button and the fan goes on and I hear this gzz, which almost sounds a little bit like an electrical short. I'm going, wow, that's weird. So I use the button on the phone in the app to turn it off. And I hear gzz. So I'm going, gosh, I don't smell, there's nothing, I don't smell electricity or anything. So I turn around and I'm doing my kitchen fan at the same time. And sure enough, I do the kitchen fan, it works, it activates, and I hear gzz. So I tried the light. So I tried the light and gzz. And I'm perplexed and I'm just thinking, what the hell is it? And I'm thinking, God, this isn't gonna work. And I'm so enamored with this thing. And I turn around and I look in my sink and there's tons of Dawn soap in my sink. Well, if you think about a hand dispenser, it uses the infrared from your hand as you put your hand under the dispenser and dispenses soap. I had a Simply Human dispenser there. And Bond was sending out an infrared signal or ultrasonic, whichever it was, probably ultrasonic, because when you put your hand under it senses it. So it was activating my soap dispenser. But I'm such a geek, such an automation geek, my first thought was, oh my gosh, I can activate my home sensor from my phone by just pressing that button. And I thought back for a second, I go, Ken, you have an automatic soap dispenser. You don't have to pick up your phone. You simply put your hand under it and it dispenses soap. So there's no way I need to remotely do it. And the end of the story, the great end of the story is I took my Bond and put it back in my master bedroom by the router where I had was initially going to put it. I was just putting it there temporarily. It doesn't affect my soap dispenser at all. So life is good because I have everything controlled. So that's the Bond device. Let's see, I'm just looking over my notes, make sure yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. So Siri shortcuts is what you saw with my lights. And I'll go back to my phone. And Siri, oops, I'm sorry, I did there we go. So if you go to the Shortcuts app, SHO, there it is. You can set up different things that are prompted with Siri. So let me try this. Turn reading light on.
Okay, sending. Command sent.
So that light over my shoulder just came on because it's named reading light. And that's a shortcut that communicates with my Bond device. Turn reading light off.
That's done.
Okay. And I'm using Siri again by using the button, so we're not saying the word hey and the word Siri. When you build these, it's like programming. But also the nice thing about, and I should show you home at the same time. Used to be called HomeKit, and it's home. And so you can see there, I have certain things like my Ecobee. So I can say, set Ecobee to 78 degrees.
Okay, the Ecobee 4 is set to 78 degrees Fahrenheit.
And you see it changed it right there. Okay. And that's in HomeKit, but the beauty of HomeKit and Shortcuts is you can put a bunch of things together. you can set up what's called a scene, and you can tell it to do multiple things. Like you could say, I'm going to bed now. And that would mean that it will check my front door lock because I have an automated lock. It will put the thermostat to whatever you say. It will turn off some lights and things like that. And by the way, you can automate your light switches in your house. There's ways to automate the bulbs themselves or the actual switch in the wall. And that can work. But the nice thing about that is you can have it detect movement and turn on automatically, or you can have it done with Siri, or you just turn it on and off. Most of these automated things can still be done by hand, obviously. Those of you that are Tesla owners, if you get, there's an app in there, I can tell it, and I'm not going to do it because my garage is closed. I can use the automatic opener on the front of the car and tell it to open my garage. I can tell it to close my trunk. And I have the one that I do, and I do this with my Apple Watch as I'm walking up to my car. I go to my Apple Watch and I say the word hey and the word Siri, and I say, open sesame. And it takes a couple, 20 seconds and my trunk opens. So I can tell it to play a Clark Howard podcast, things like that, different ones, all kinds of different things. So here's how you do a shortcut. You go here and you say, these are some of the suggested actions. So you just go through and build it. And what I would recommend is either if you've got Apple Music, do the play or open app, practice with those, and then you just continually build things going on. So once you do a shortcut, you can say, add that shortcut to my home screen, or what's called the share sheet. So that's when you go to an app and you hit the share thing. You can tell your shortcut to display on the Apple Watch. You can do a lot of different things. And when you set it up, you can test it. You also have ability to give a certain shortcut privileges or not privileges. And then I don't use the import. So if we go back to this, at the bottom, you'll see automation. And this will, where you can put many different things, and it will sense, like on the top one there, it would be when you enter your house and your phone knows you're at home, it could activate certain things, turn on lights, do different things like that. And then there are galleries. Now, these automation suggestions are some because it knows what I have, and I have these different devices. And there's going home. So it says, when you're getting to your house, you could have it when it's within 300 feet of your house. It could turn on your Apple Music for you. It could adjust your temperature, do things like that. Here's some other shortcuts I could add to the apps. Like in the Bond app, if I want my kitchen fan to go 2, things like that, there is to show the Tesla price. There are some others here that they have suggestions. And this is where you play with it and learn it, and you can customize these. Now, just because it says turn text to audio does not mean that that's what you have to use. You could, when you do it, you could say, when you add the shortcut, you could change it to the word hey and the word Siri, turn text on or something like that. You can change what you call it. So what you call it is also what you speak it. So you don't want it to be super short, like this stop distractions, which is a way to turn on your do not disturb or focus. You wouldn't just say distractions or stop because it might get confused with something else. So I recommend at least 2 words, but possibly 3, because when you're telling Siri something, you want it to be able to differentiate between that. So shortcuts is great, and there are tons of videos out there on how to do it. There's some hand holding involved. The automation is going to get better, and I can tell you that the time you spent learning it or doing a few things on it will help. It'll just be so great over time, because I can say it anywhere in my house. I don't have to have my phone with me. The same shortcuts appear on my iPad, they're on my computer, they're on my HomePod, they're on my AirPods. So in other words, I just say the key words and it activates whatever it is. So that's Siri dictation and a teaser on shortcuts. And oh my gosh, I didn't see the three hands. That's wonderful. So go ahead, June, you're first.
Thank you very much. A friend of mine was just diagnosed with cancer, and I'm going to go to the doctor's office with her and try to record what the doctor says so we don't get overwhelmed.
Yep, absolutely. Great
What
question.
would you use to do that?
It's built in. So first of all, I did the same thing with my mother. You know, she lived to be 90. Bless her heart. Today is her 94th birthday, 97th birthday, 96th, whatever it is. She passed away at 90, and I remember in her 80s we would go into the doctor's appointment, and when I went with her, I would help explain things. But you know, you have that anxiety whenever you're the white coat anxiety that happens. So it's hard to remember those things. So I would record it, but I would do it surreptitiously, not to because I want the doctor to be comfortable, and I'm not going to use those for anything other than her. So you make your own judgments on that. Yes, you could ask the doctor, but you play that and figure out how it is. But you simply would have your phone in your pocket and it should pick up pretty well. And you go into and you just do a search of voice, VOICE, and you have voice memos built into your phone.
Okay.
And it will record it. So you would, before the doctor comes in, hit start. And then you could even have your phone set upside down or something like that. It will record the whole thing. When you're done, you just turn off voice memos and you can play it back. It remembers it. You can actually share it, send it, do things like that. Great question. In this case, I wouldn't necessarily use Siri because, and you can say launch voice memos, but don't do it when the doctor's there. And again, that's up to you to how you deal with that. But I just think that you're not trying to do anything nefarious by this. By the way, in California, it's illegal to record someone unless both sides of the conversation are aware of it. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, in some states, there's only one factor notification needed. So the person making the recording, knowing they're making a recording, that's why they can get other people. But California is not that way. So, you know, your choice on that, and it's a way to do it. It's called voice memo. It's built in, and it used to be called voice recorder, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Kathy, go right ahead.
I have Sonos in my house, Sonos speakers. Yeah. And so if I wanted to launch them when I get home, do I need that other special rerouter, or will it talk with my Sonos system?
So think about it this way. The gateway, you're not talking direct to Sonos when you do these shortcuts or even Siri. What it is you're talking to the Sonos app. For instance, when I told my lights to go on, I was talking to the Bond app.
Oh. Uh-huh.
And so this will work with devices that aren't even part of HomeKit. If devices are part of HomeKit, you don't even have to make a shortcut, they're automatic. But for instance, like with my car, I do it through an app called Stats or another app, and the app is the gateway to the device. So in your case, you would have the Sonos app. So what happens is when you make a shortcut, you would make a shortcut to go to the Sonos app, and you would say something like, and does your Sonos respond to your voice anyway?
I don't think
it does. Okay.
I don't think so.
So you could probably make it also so you could respond to it with a shortcut. The other thing is, if you have an Amazon device, an Echo, if it doesn't work on the Apple end, see if it works in theirs. There might even be a Sonos skill you can add to it. And the way that all works is all of those things are on the same network, your Wi-Fi, and therefore you can use those things to control it.
Okay.
But
thanks.
I'd look and Google it. How do I do a shortcut, or how can I have Siri work on Sonos, and you'll love it. And then the idea of having the app on the phone is, as you approach your house, you could have music greet you when you get in the house. The other thing is, it'd be wonderful to be able to use your voice to turn the volume up or down or turn it off or mute it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I apologize, it'll take them a minute to do my very small front yard there. Do you guys hear the mowers? Okay. Let's see here. Donna, go for it. Unmute yourself, please.
You talked about the light switch.
Yeah.
What do I have to do to adjust? What do I adjust to make be able to a reminder and it accepted by the light switch? With
A
the
reminder to do what?
You said the light switch.
No, I
in
can
the
use
wall.
I
You
can
actually
use
went to the
Siri.
wall.
I can activate Siri with the light switch. A reminder won't do anything because
Oh, that okay. It was
yeah.
Siri we were talking about.
But you could, but with the apps, you could set up a schedule, for instance, inside the app. So there are hue lights. There's another lights that I like, and it's really funny. Don't Google it because it's oh gosh, what is the name of them? It's almost like it's pornographic. It's Sense LED. Sengled, SENGLED. They're on Amazon. Amazon Basics has some too. So the way to automate your lights is you can get the bulbs that then connect to either they usually have to have a gateway, and your light switches. For instance, the one light, both of those lights behind me, the sconce and the reading light, are hooked to. I'm sorry, I have a remote for them, but I have an outside light on my patio. Actually, I have a waterfall, just a little water thing, and I have it hooked to an outlet that can be actuated by either Siri or by Echo. And that's what you can do. You can make the bulbs, get special bulbs that themselves work. Usually you have to have a hub, and that otherwise your light switch, you would have someone replace your actual light switch on the wall, and it's got constant power, and then it connects to your network and you can activate that way. So it's automation, and you can search around for that. And I recommend, if you want it to be HomeKit compatible, Apple's HomeKit is the safest, most secure, because it's Apple, for gosh sakes. So when you go into Apple and look under HomeKit, then it'll show you different devices. And those, first and foremost, are the most secure. Sometimes they're a little bit pricier, but then you can also investigate the Amazon Alexa thing, and you can get a little Echo Dot for $29, and that'll create functionality. And they do pretty much the same thing. So good. Barbara, go right ahead.
I have a couple questions, Ken.
Okay.
The first is about my watch. When you're dictating to Siri, are you supposed to be pretty brief? Because this morning I sent my neighbor a message, and at the end I said exclamation point, and she immediately said, "I'll send your message." I wanted to add something else to it, but I wanted to add another sentence, but she was pretty quick.
What happens on the watch is it usually comes up with a send thing, and what you can do is, if you tap it and try invoke it a little more, in that case, my recommendation is just send a second one. And
That's what I did.
by the way, on your watch, you can say the word "Hey" and the word "Siri" if you have that turned on, and it'll activate your watch. But the crown, the button that sticks out
Yeah, that's
on
what
the
I
Apple
used.
Watch is how you invoke Siri, and you just press and hold it, and you can use it. You can keep pressing it if you want, but it invokes Siri, and you can do the exact same things as far as sending text messages and things like that.
I have another question. I really like your fan. It's really nice. And I don't really want to get into another intermediate device, but did you say that Hunter
That's a
Douglas
Hunter
fan,
fan, yes.
Hunter fan, you could invoke it, turn it on directly with Siri from your phone.
Correct. Well, they
And
have a Hunter app.
Does it have a transmitter too?
Yeah, so it has a remote.
Yeah.
It has an app, and it's HomeKit compatible. So what you look for, it'll be a little gold home, and you look for home compatible,
Right.
and then it's HomeKit. And then also, I also make sure that they're usually Alexa, Echo, Amazon device, Alexa off, compatible, because I have a few more of those. And by the way, I'm a huge proponent of the Amazon ones. And I'm not a big component of the Google. And what you got to think of it is with it's like, I bet most of us would not want to have a Facebook device that, like the one that's called the Portal, that's constantly listening, because Facebook has not earned our trust in any way, shape, or form. Google is a little bit, they're transparent about it and they're pretty good, but Google can be a little invasive. So therefore, I have, but I never use one of the Google devices. And let's go back to this, because it's a big deal. Facebook. How many of you, raise your hand if you're a customer of Facebook? Okay.
I am.
None of you is a customer of Facebook. Every one of you is the product
Oh
for
yeah,
Facebook.
that's right.
The customer of
Okay,
Facebook,
product.
the customer for Facebook is the one that's paying for all your information to go to them. So you trust them the least. Google, they're selling you a device and they sell some things. I'm not as worried about Google, but I'm less worried about Amazon than I am the others, because Amazon makes their money by selling you stuff. Yeah, they might share your demographics, but they really don't so much. They want you to buy more stuff. So they're not going to do anything to try to turn you away. And Apple, on the other hand, makes all their money on you purchasing products. And so therefore, they're going to give you the most privacy of everyone. So I don't have a problem with Alexa devices. They don't, there's all this fear about stuff. Man, they're great. But if you really are worried about it, use Apple. I like to have it. I have both of them so that I have flexibility, because while Apple's HomeKit has expanded dramatically over the years, there's still some of the things that don't work on it. And that's because it's not that they don't have the security. They don't want to go through the very rigid things to get Apple to approve it. And that's just telling you that the things that are approved by Apple for HomeKit are so much better. Remember though, shortcuts has nothing to do with HomeKit. Siri activates HomeKit, but shortcuts allows me to do these devices by connecting with an app. So I hope
where's a good place to look for fans like the type like you have?
Well, just do a Google search under shopping, and then if you look for Wi-Fi, that's usually a start, and then
Okay.
it goes down from there. If you email me, I can give you the link for this. Of course,
Okay.
they were on sale when I got them, and that's how my whole thing with Bond started out. I kept looking for a fan that could be Wi-Fi, and there were really expensive ones out there, and I go, no, I just want a fan that I don't have to worry about the remote, that I can control when I'm, and especially now with Zoom, where you don't want to get up and get a remote and do things like that. So I found, in searching for Wi-Fi fans, I found Bond, and it made me so happy, and it's funny what happened. So.
One more
All right.
thing. This is for
Okay.
June. The last time I was in a Sutter doctor's office, they had a sign up on the wall about recording. I would just be real circumspect about that if it's Sutter.
I think it's anywhere. And again, think of it this way. You want the doctor to share things with you, but we live in the most litigious society in the world, and they're worried about that. And, so I've told you what the law is and everything,
Just
and
be
you can
careful.
make your own decision, and we don't want to know.
Right.
I posted a couple of links there with a chart for all 50 states.
Great. Thank you, Al. Of
Peruse some
course
of the-
he did. Al's on top of it, man. That's just awesome. All right. And Harmon, last question for now. And I will hang around a little bit later, but I'll close the recording and everything after Harmon.
Okay. Is there a way to control the volume of Siri's voice?
On the HomePod?
No, on the phone. I have never heard Siri's voice. I can see the responses that Siri gives me, but
So
I've never heard voice.
When I was in the settings, did you go back in and check your settings then?
Well, is there a setting for volumes?
No, but there's a setting to turn it on, and then the volume is controlled by your switch. So let's go.
Switch? What do you mean switch?
Hang on. Let's go here. I'm going to go to the Siri. So Siri and search right here. And you have to say Siri responses. And Harmon, set yours on always.
It is.
Okay, now what happens is when Siri gives you a response, when that response is on your screen, keep tapping the volume up button on your phone.
The side button.
The side button, the up button, the top button. Because what happens is if you've got music, if you've got a phone call, if you're listening to a podcast, the side button isn't the same for everyone. In other words, it always controls whatever is there.
Interesting conversations.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's it. So, and again, that's why you have to instigate it to get it to be active for that. I will show you
turning up the volume on the Channel 3 news bites. That didn't help Siri.
Yeah. So one other thing that you need to look at on your phone, since you talked about sound, if you go to sound and haptics, you have this, you should always have this on, change with buttons, you'll see right in the center. If that's off, that means you can't adjust the volume with the button. And sometimes it's usually on by default, but sometimes people have had that changed. So again, that's under settings, sound and haptics. And Al, of course, just put up the volume thing there. All right, excellent. I'm going to stop the record.